All right, everybody, we're going to get started here in just a second. Super excited to see everybody joining in. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Just going to quickly turn on my face cam here to introduce myself if you don't already know me. My name is Jonathan, and super excited to be doing another live build stream today. So wherever you are in the world, hopefully you can sit back and relax or keep this open in a new tab, and we'll get this rolling. So basically what we're going to do today is take an Elementor site and move it to Oxygen. Now there's no real trick to this, so essentially we're just going to rebuild this entire site in Oxygen. I picked this site for a number of reasons. First of all, I thought it looked pretty good, and then also there's some interesting things like some of these layouts in the header area here for the homepage versus some of these inner pages, for instance. So we're going to use this as kind of our baseline. And then down here, there's just some other layouts that I thought would be pretty interesting to try to replicate. So we'll go through all of this. But to give you a sense for what I've done already, in Cloudways, I've cloned the site. So I started with my Elementor site, copied that over to a new install, and that's it. So we're going to basically install Oxygen. We're going to set up everything from the beginning. So if there's something that you see me do you have a question on, please feel free to pop it in chat. I'm going to try my best to keep an eye on it. And yeah, so a couple of things I wanted to draw your attention to. If you're interested in that stream music at the beginning, that's kindly provided by Ambient. There's an ambient thing on Bandcamp called Cliff Diver that I really love, so you guys should check that out. And then also, I was able to recently turn on the super chat function of the live streams and premieres. So if you're feeling incredibly generous and you feel like tossing a few bucks, that would be more than welcome. I've never had anybody do it, but obviously no pressure. I just unlocked that. So anyway, I'm gonna switch over here, get my face out of the way unless you guys want that, but I'm gonna go ahead and just pop this out. And now we're gonna go ahead and get rolling. So like I said, I already went ahead and cloned the site. So I'm gonna basically show you the back end of the Elementor site. I changed the theme here of the WordPress admin side so that it was clear what site we were on. So obviously the one that's going to have Elementor you can see there in the plugins, but we may not be at that spot all the time. So if you see this kind of like green side, that's more Elementor. And then of course our target site for Oxygen is just going to be the typical WordPress black backend like that. So a couple of things we're going to do here. So we need to get Oxygen installed on this site. And we're going to do that in just a moment. So we got to set up all the plugins. I'll just show you real quick. This is pretty much an exact clone of the other site, but we do need to disable Elementor, add Oxygen. We're going to put Hydrogen Pack on there, a couple other things. Neil asked, how do you access Super Chat? There's a little, under the chat window, there's like a little $ thing. And if you click on that, apparently it lets you donate money, which is pretty insane. So I don't expect any of you guys to do that, but I thought I'd mention it in any case. So let's go ahead and delete, well actually before we do that, so I just want to show you this target site. Now of course I said I cloned these sites identically so they look pretty much the same. The only difference is of course the URL. This one says 472.cloud. Oh my gosh, there's a there's a super chat. That's so insane. Thank you so much. I really can't believe that. That's the first one ever, so really incredible. So kind of you. I really appreciate that. So I was just mentioning the URLs are different. So other than that, they're all identical. So what's going to happen on your Elementor site when you disable, when you add Oxygen? So let's leave Elementor in place, and we're going to go ahead and add Oxygen to this site. Interestingly enough, the release candidate of 3.7 just came out, which is pretty awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and upload that to the site real quick. So again, this is basically from the very beginning. So this is what it's going to look like the very first time you set it up. I'm going to go ahead and activate Oxygen here. Now you have two different options. So this can sometimes be a little bit misleading, and I've had some questions on this where people install Oxygen and they're afraid to click blank installation because they think it's going to wipe out the whole website. There's another $5 or £5. Thank you guys. It's just insane. Just insane. Thank you so much. I started this channel because I just loved Oxygen and was blown away at how powerful it was. It literally transformed my business, and I just felt like it had to be shared with other people. So to see everybody just like so thankful all the time, and now to like be dropping money in chat, like, oh man, it's unbelievable. So thank you. But back to my point here, the blank installation doesn't actually overwrite your site. It just doesn't add any Oxygen templates or anything from the default design library. If you want to import some design content, you certainly can do that, but we're not going to. We're just going to hit blank here in this case. And then you can see Elementor is actually still active on the site. So if we go back over here and refresh on the front end, it actually still has quite a bit there. So maybe some of this stuff is in the WordPress content editor or Gutenberg blocks. So you can see it doesn't really, I guess in some cases it's going to completely break your site, but in this case, it's still mostly functional, which is pretty cool. Now, at this point, we really don't need Elementor anymore because all we're really going to do is just look at our old site and replicate that design. So now what I'm going to do on this target site is go ahead and just basically delete Astra, Elementor, and the starter templates. So we can deactivate all this stuff. And any other plugins that we need, we're just going to add in real time. So, not auto update. We're going to delete that stuff. And then, like I mentioned, I'm going to use the hydrogen pack as well. I think it's going to help us speed up our workflow. So if you guys haven't seen my hydrogen pack video that I did probably about a week ago now, go ahead and check that out. It's a really cool, powerful addition to Oxygen. So I guess I need to go ahead and get my license key real quick. So let me grab that. I hadn't considered needing licenses, but I guess that is important. So licenses, hydrogen, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to take this over here. I love you guys, but I don't want to share my license key. So let me activate that, and then I'll come back over here. So now, of course, Hydrogen adds a lot of really cool features. I pretty much leave it at the default. There are some keybinds that I probably should have set up ahead of time, but realistically it's going to be fine. So Hydrogen pack as it is will be perfect, and that's really all we need to get started. So you don't have to have Hydrogen pack, let me say that. It's totally a personal preference thing. I mean, you can get by with Oxygen sort of vanilla, if you want, if you want to call it that. And then basically, because we clone that site, we have all of our media items here as well. So we don't have to worry about uploading any media items. So if we go back over here and look at our origin site, the first thing we're going to need to do is set up our main template. And hello from South Africa. Glad to have you here. I think we have people all over the world today, which is pretty amazing. So if you guys are out there, drop in chat where you're from, and I'd love to kind of see. So yeah, so basically we're going to start with our site-wide template. Now to give you a sense for what we're going to do, so the main template is going to basically contain this whole header here for all of our pages. It's going to have our inner content element in the middle, and then the footer area, of course, is going to be in that main template as well. So yes, good point. You can import and export settings for Hydrogen pack. I just didn't do it in this case. I only have basically the one site that I was using it on. So I just, like I said, haven't actually switched it. We got Colombia from Holland. Absolutely amazing. Love it. All right, so Ireland and Lithuania, and then super awesome. Just for the sake of conversation, I'm in the US, I'm in Florida, if you guys were curious. Hello from Spain, super awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you guys pointing out you can import and export from Hydrogen. I just, like I said, haven't done that. So we're gonna go ahead and get started by creating our site-wide template here. So first of all, I wanna take a look at what fonts we're using. So you guys are gonna see me use this new Chrome extension called Hoverify. So I'm not sure if you've seen that, but there is a link in the video description here, and I'm releasing a video on this tomorrow. But this is kind of a cool way to inspect web pages other than Chrome Inspect. You can just click on anything and it gives you that font. So you can either click it and look, this one's Poppins, which you can probably tell. And then this one is what? That one is Noto Serif, so that's pretty neat. We have India and Indonesia. Absolutely amazing, guys. So stoked to have all of you. Really, really cool. So this is a really cool extension. There's a lot of really powerful stuff. So we're going to use this quite a bit to get things like colors and fonts and spacing and stuff like that. The other thing that you'll see in the video tomorrow that's really cool is there's this grid function. So you can kind of see how stuff is laid out, which this makes it look kind of crazy, but it also gives you a really good sense for like how this stuff is structured and how it's laid out, which is pretty neat. And then You can also look at individual elements. So if I turn this off, I can hover over an individual element, look at the alignment and the spacing, which I find pretty cool. So of course you can do that with Chrome, but with Chrome Inspect, but this is just another really cool way to do it. Elijah says, I have CSS scan, but don't use it much. Yeah, Elijah, first of all, happy to have you here, man. But Hoverify is pretty cool. I actually am pleasantly surprised, and it's really cheap too. So there's a link in the description if you guys are interested. There's a lot of other really cool stuff here. I don't want to get off on this, but you can like search for classes. You have an entire color palette here, so every color on the entire site, this is going to be useful for us setting up our global colors. So anyway, let's go ahead and get our Oxygen template set up. So we're going to go back to our target site here. We're going to go to Oxygen templates. We're going to add a new one here. And then main is what we're going to, oh, we got caps lock on. I'm going to call this one main. I'm trying to type one-handed here. As usual, I typically start with my main template just by applying it to the singular post type of pages. And that's it. So we're going to go ahead and publish this. And then we'll hop into Oxygen here. So Dan says I should do a deep dive on Hoverify. Elijah, I knew it would. That's exactly why I showed it to you. So Dan says, I think you should do a deep dive on Hoverify. That is coming tomorrow, and that video will be there. It's a little over 10 minutes, and we'll do a premiere, so definitely stick around for that tomorrow morning. There's a lot of other cool stuff in Hoverify as well. There's like the color picker, which I have a different Chrome extension for. There's also the assets function, so like if we go over here, you can just download all the images and SVGs and stuff all straight from this page. And then the other really cool thing is you have the take screenshot. So obviously that's built into Chrome Inspect as well, but you can take full page screenshots, which is pretty neat. So again, video coming tomorrow, and there's a link in this video's description if you guys are interested in checking it out. So let's go ahead and start off by on our template here. We're going to just stick in a div, and this one is going to be our main wrapper div. Now what it's going to do is contain this entire heading section, and so we're going to stick in a bunch of other divs here, and we'll go ahead and just get started. So first of all, we're going to change this tag here to header, keep things kind of semantic, and I'm going to try to rename this stuff in real time so we can kind of see. Let's just call this one here kind of like header container, something like that if I can type. So we have that. And then next up, we're going to stick in another div here that is going to be kind of our logo, menu, and then our button here. So let's figure out how wide this content is first of all. So if we go to Hoverify Inspect, this is 1200 pixels. So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and close some of this stuff and clean out my tabs here so we can just get a little bit more optimized. Ryzen says, Elijah, thank you so much for Oxygen. I completely agree, because we all wouldn't be here if it weren't for that. So really appreciate it. Lionel says, RC1 is okay for commercial website. I do believe so. Elijah, you can clarify, but I'm pretty sure the release candidates are available for support. So it should be safe to use it. But we have the big man here, and I'm sure he can answer that for us. All right, so what I'm going to do is on this div, and perhaps we should set up a class for this. We could just basically name this PS, like, I don't know, div PW, div for page width. I'm not sure this is going to work, but I'm going to try this because I think we're going to be adding a lot of divs here that are going to be restricted to that 1200 width. So I'm going to try this. So we're going to add this class, and basically what we're going to do is set the width to 100%, and then we're going to set the max width to 1200 pixels. So that's going to restrict that div to a maximum of 1200 pixels, and that's going to keep everything nice and aligned for us. Now the next thing I'm going to do is set this header container. Well, actually, I was thinking I would center this, but I think what I'll do is just take this div, and we're going to just go margin left, right, auto, stick that in the middle like that, and then I'm going to call this kind of like menu container. That'll work. And now we're going to, of course, get our logo, our menu, and our button there for our phone number. So let's just add in an image element. Let's find our logo here. Let's see, there's SVGs. Surprised those even made it in because I don't have the SVG plugin. So let's see. That is not what I wanted. These are SVGs, so they're giving me some trouble here. What am I doing wrong? Already running into problems. Who would have thought? Why is it Oh, it's because it's white. It's because it's white. That's why. So if I were to set the background of this image color, yeah, there it is. The text of the image is white, of course. So, all right, so I'm gonna get rid of this for now. And then that image is 180 by 45. So we're gonna restrict that width. So image is gonna be 180 by 45. Don't actually think the 45 is necessary in this case. And then let's go ahead and stick in some text links here. So text links are gonna be for our main menu component, and let's call this PS header links is typically the class that I use. Let's see, Ryzen says, I want to create a platform where creators can upload their videos and people can watch their series for like $5 a month. The series need to be able to purchase separately. Oh man, that's going to be a difficult site. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that can build that. Perhaps there's even some kind of membership plugin that could do that, but that would definitely be a tricky site to build. It'd be kind of a beast of a site. So let's go back and take a look over here at some of our styling. So if we click this, it's going to hold our menu link styling there for us. And what do we have? So the color is white. Noto serif is the font. We actually need to go change our global fonts to match here. So let's go back over to Oxygen. We're going to do two things. First of all, we're going to go to Manage, Settings, Global Styles, and Fonts. Display we're going to change to Poppins, and then this other one we're going to change to Noto serif. So Noto serif like that. And let's see, so we're gonna have home, of course, and then let's see how much margin we have on the right-hand side here. Does it actually tell us that? This is still relatively new to me. So the padding is 1 EM on the top and bottom, or excuse me, the left and right, right? Yeah. So 1 EM, I do believe that's how this is working. All right, so now we're gonna duplicate this a couple of times. And so we need to change that to white, which I don't want to do quite yet because it's going to make it disappear. We need to get that image in the background. And then we have a transition. When we hover, what does it actually do? I need to get rid of hoverify, I guess. Oh, it just makes it go from the like grayish color to white. I see now. All right. So that color is just an RGBA. And what you can actually do here is just click this color and it copies the color to your clipboard, which is pretty neat. So we're going to go text color like that. And then our hover color is going to be full white. So we can actually see this on our header container here. We're gonna go set the background image, and I don't actually know which one it is. Let's see. Oh, it's this one of the big greenhouse, I believe. That says testimonial header, hero, background, horticulture, green hero. Is that the one? Yeah, so we probably also need to set the height here. So what is the height? It's at 100%. Kind of taking a look at what the height is. Let's just go like 75 VH, something like that. Whoops, VH, not none. And then we need to set that background to contain, cover, yeah, cover. So Jacob asks, sorry if this has been mentioned, is it a Google Chrome extension that's being used to search the CSS? Yes, so that is called Hoverify. So it, I believe, also has Firefox and Safari at this time, but it's a Chrome extension used to find all that stuff. And again, I mentioned it's in the description if you guys want to check that out. So what I'm going to do now is set this image to 50% from the top, because I think that's roughly what we have on the home page here. And then there's also an image overlay color. So there's a background color here. I don't know that that's actually it. Let's see. That seems super dark, so we're probably just going to need to play with this a little bit. And it's actually not background color, it's image overlay. So let's just go like 50%. And if we need to, we can change that later, of course. All right. So now we can actually see what we're doing with this white content on the page. So now what I want to do is take these text links and let's go ahead and wrap these with a div. And actually, I was going to try to right click over there in the structure panel with hydrogen, but apparently you cannot. So what I'm going to do is wrap this with a div, and then I'm going to stick these text links inside of this div if it lets me. There we go. Drag and drop is always a little bit tricky. And then what I'm going to do is also I'm going to duplicate this link one more time, except on this one I'm going to add a stack class here that we'll design in a little bit for PS header link, and we'll just call this button. So now let's take this div, which is going to be our text link container. I think F2 is rename. Yeah, it is. In Hydrogen Pack, F2 is rename. So we're going to go links container is what we're going to call this one. We're going to set this to horizontal and middle align. Now let's take this menu container that we have, and we're going to go horizontal again, middle align, and then let's go space between. And so what else are we missing here? So we have just our links and then our phone number, and then that button here is going to have some cool styling to it. So the first thing is that it doesn't have a background color until you hover, and let's see what else we got here. So where's our padding? This is still a bit new to me, so it's 1624 on that. So let's switch over here to this link that we added, the PS header link button, and it's going to be 16 top and bottom and 24 left and right. Then the typography color is going to be our green. Now I haven't actually added those global colors yet, but obviously I do need to do that. So I'm going to click this right here, and now what I can do is just stick this in as a color because it copied that color to my clipboard. Go to global, and we'll just call this like primary green. And then we essentially need to do the inverse of that on hover. Well, actually we also need to set the typography to uppercase, I believe. Well, no, it's just numbers in this case, so it doesn't actually matter. But the font weight is 600, so let's go ahead and bump that up. So 600, and then I'm going to change the text here from home to, like, I don't know, 888 123 1234. If any of you guys like the IT crowd, I thought about coming up with the phone number from the emergency services line. I actually don't know it off the top of my head, but I think that would be kind of funny. The number is super long though. All right, so next up, on hover we get that green background color and the text changes to white. So let's go to hover state of this. We're going to change the color here to white, and then our background color is going to be that global green that we just set. Looks like we have some border radius as well. So border radius of 8, and then we need to change the font size to 1.375 rem. So we're going to go to, let's see, typography, font size is rem 1.375. And then the border radius was 8, so 8 right there. All right, so that is coming along. It seems a little bit different though. I guess, oh, the font is Poppins instead of our Noto serif. So let's switch that over here. I'm going to go to Poppins. That just seems so huge. Maybe, oh man, I applied those font size changes to the hover effect. So this is you guys watching me make some of these mistakes in real time. Kind of interesting. So 1.375 rem. And what else did I do? I changed the font weight on the hover state as well. So I need to go back. These are some of the things that I would typically edit out of a video, but you're seeing them. Oh wait, no, I didn't. What did I do wrong here? Maybe it's that it was, what did I do wrong? Typography. Why is it jumping so much? Oh, I added the padding. That's what it is. It's the padding to the hover state. I think, right? Yeah, that's exactly what I did. So I need to go back over here. So 16, top and bottom, 24, 24. And then we also need to add the transition effect. So what does that transition look like? It is 0.2 linear all. I knew you guys would eventually figure it out quicker than I could, but we got it figured out. So we just need to add that transition effect. Oh, right, and the font. Yep. So we're going to go back to default. It's funny how these are just things that would, go wrong in real time, but I would edit them out of videos to just make it much more cohesive, and you guys would never even know. But here you do. You get to see my faults in action. All right, so now we're going to make sure we're in the original state this time, and we're going to go to Effects, Transition. It was 0.2, right? 0.2 linear, like that. There we go. So we have that hover effect on the button. So that was a little bit more tricky than it should have been, only because I made those mistakes. But as you can see, that's just how it goes sometimes. All right, so our text links over here look kind of small. So let's go take a look real quick and just double check. We have our font size set up. So it's a line height of 64. And then where's the font size in this thing? Font size is 100%. That's seems like kind of an odd way to do it, but nonetheless, that's what they did. All right. Font size is 100%. I actually don't know what that's going to do. So typography, the line height, 64 pixels. Whoa. That is not what we want. Maybe we'll just set it to like 2 or something like that. And then the height was at 100%. Probably because this container here is set to a specific height. Let's see what that is. So it's 77 pixels high. So if we set this links, or actually let's go to menu container and we're going to set this to 77 pixels high. Now we want to do it on the ID here instead of the class because we don't necessarily always want this class to be that same height. So we're going to go to ID, 77 pixels. And then we already set it to middle align, so we should be set there. And next up, let's see what we got. So getting pretty close here. We just need to change these text links to be their proper, link, essentially. Their proper name. That's the only thing I found that's kind of annoying about Hoverify, if I'm honest, is that sometimes I don't want the dialog pop up there, but if you pause it, then, it basically goes away. I wish there was an easier way to do that. Maybe there's a shortcut. I think there is, but I don't know what it is. All right, so anyway, next up we have our farm, our produce. So let's go ahead and change that stuff here. So our farm, and let's link it while we're here. So we're gonna go to our farm, and those pages already exist, of course, because we cloned the site earlier, our produce, and then what was the other two? So it was testimonial and contact us. Testimonial, I always struggle with that word. Contact us. And again, we're just going to link those. So contact and testimonial. All right, so that is looking nice. So yep, I appreciate you saying that we all make mistakes because it's absolutely true. You guys are just seeing it firsthand live on air. So that is our header looking decent. To me, it looks like our fonts are a little bit smaller on our actual website here, but perhaps they're not. I guess maybe the background color isn't quite as dark on our site here. So let's bump that up to maybe like 65, something like that. So yeah, now we got our menu container mostly sorted. The only thing that differs here is the active color, which I don't exactly know how we're going to add that except through CSS. So focus, hover. Yeah, I think we'll just stick with that. It's perfectly fine. So next up, we're going to add another div container here. So let me show you real quick what this looks like. So if we go to like the Our Farm tab, you can see we have a bunch of information here. This header is kind of tall. And then on this other one here, it shrinks quite a bit. So we still have the page title, a short description. We have this little like, div separator there. But what we lose is a lot of the height and then also the social icons and the address of this particular business. So I thought that was kind of a cool setup for us to replicate. We're going to need to make some changes to the height that we set on this section earlier, but that's okay. So now what we're going to do is go back over here to Oxygen. In our header container, we're going to add in a new div. And let's just call this like page title container or something like that. Page title container. And then we're going to do essentially the same thing. We're going to add that class from earlier so we don't have to restyle the width and the max width. So PS div PW is what I called it. So we're going to do that. And then this particular one, we'll need to find a way to push that down a little bit, but that's all right. We'll do that in just a minute. I think actually we could just go to this div here and maybe like space around might not work unless we set this div to a position absolute top 0. I believe that would work. But that messes up our spacing. What if we center this? There we go. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. So I set this top 1 to layout to absolute top 0, and then I just set our main section to center everything here. So that will work. So now we have this div container in the middle, which is essentially what we have both on the inner pages as well as the home page. So I'm going to close that inner page for the moment. So inside this div, we're going to need basically a column that's going to have, what is this, roughly 50-50 width on the left and right. So 570 pixels and 570. All right. So Josh says, interesting how you've set up the header. Why not use the header builder? To be perfectly honest with you, I don't like using the header builder. I find it causes issues, and I know Elijah's in here, so he's probably like, what kind of issues are you talking about? It just seems like whenever I use it, it causes me more trouble than it's worth. So I pretty much always build the headers manually. And also it just gives me more flexibility in layout options and design and stuff. To me, it just makes it much easier to build it manually. There we go. Elijah just summed it up perfectly. It has some downfalls that aren't worth dealing with if you don't need sticky or overlay. Completely agree there, which is exactly why I'm not using it. You pretty much never see me use it unless we're using sticky, but it's also relatively straightforward to set up sticky just using some simple CSS as well. Alrighty. So now inside of this div, if you guys know me, you know I typically don't use the columns element. That's only because I like to be able to control the spacing of the divs inside of it. So we're going to build this column manually. So I'm going to expand this so you can see what we're doing. I'm going to set the width here to like 48%, and then I'm going to duplicate this. Now inside of this left div here we have, oh gosh, I need to get rid of that for the moment. There is a shortcut. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. Diviatus. Thank you so much. There's a shortcut to toggle hoverify Alt-I. So Alt-I. Yep, indeed, you're right. That makes it a heck of a lot better. So we have a small little subheading here, and that's green. It looks like it's, what size is that? 0.75 rem. And then font weight of 600. Okay, so I'm going to click this to leave it open. And then let's go ahead and add in, I guess we'll use a heading element, and let's just call this like PS heading. I guess we'll go H4 because it's going to be, or maybe even like H5. It's going to be super, super small. Our text color here will be the green. The font weight was what? Font weight is 600. Font size is 0.7. 0.75, right? Rem? Yep. And then it's pop ends, that's already set. Margin bottom is 20. So we'll go ahead and stick that on the ID of this element. Let's see. Gordon says, why not use the menu element? Once again, it just, to me, gives you more flexibility because you can use text links, or in a case where you want some like icons and stuff inside of your links, you can also just use a link wrapper instead of the text link, and it just gives you a lot more flexibility. Liam asks, is there any way to actually add UL and LI elements for the header nav, which is better HTML semantics to use rather than divs? To be perfectly honest with you, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly because I believe text links and the link wrapper are both just A elements, if I'm not mistaken. And there's a little glitch on the front end here with the setup we did with that container. Hopefully you guys don't hear that insanely loud car that just drove by because that was super loud. That's a good question. Not really too sure on that, Liam. That's something worth investigating for sure. All right, so back to this. This heading says this is down farm, whatever that is. And that just looks so small. It's actually an H6 element, so to be consistent, we probably want to change that. But we already set it H4, and that's our class name, so we're going to stick to that. Letter spacing is 2, line height of 1, so let's go ahead and do that. Switch back over here to our class, letter spacing of 2, line height of 1, and that's looking pretty good. So we are essentially right at that point now. Hello from Colombia, Antonio. That's super glad to have you. That's a place I would love to go. Yeah, I would agree. Probably best to use WP menu, something like that. Or, just use a code block if you want to just style it. Make sure you get exactly the semantics that you're after. That is for sure a way to do it. So back over here, we have this div separator. So this one's going to be pretty simple to achieve. We're essentially just going to, whoa, there's a bunch of windows right here. What did I do? I guess I clicked it a bunch of times. We're just going to add a div here. Let's see, it is 32 pixels wide. So let's go add in a div, and let's just call this like PS sep short. So this will be PS separator short is my class name here. We're going to set this to a width of 32 pixels. We're going to go a height of, let's just say 2, because I think that's what it was set to. And then the border bottom, we're going to go green. And then I think it's just a width of 1 or 2. Let's just double check if it tells us here. Not sure exactly how they got that. Their border is actually 0. I don't know what they did. Maybe it's a background color, but I think we're essentially going to get the same thing here. So it's probably a width of 2 instead of just 1. Welcome from Serbia. Amazing. There's lots of places in this chat that I would love to go. I just obviously can't. None of us can do that right now, realistically, especially us Americans. Nobody wants us. All right, so what margin do we have underneath this div? Oh gosh, I can't click it. So the separator here, line height, it's got a line height of 29 pixels, and then, let's see, I wish there was a way that you could see, you know, like in XD and Figma, where you can hover over something and it shows you the spacing between those elements. That would be really nice if there was a way to do that. Maybe there is that I'm just not familiar with, but let's see here. Line height is 29 pixels. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's just the line height on that div, but I don't know that that's actually going to work. So I can't change the line height here, so I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work. Let's see. No, let's just go margin. So what did we use as margin underneath this to be really consistent here? We said it was 25 pixels, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go 25 pixels underneath that. I really like all the discussions in chat, like as far as SEO perspective. Is there no disadvantage in using text links instead of the menu? From SEO perspective, quite honestly, not that I'm aware of. The Permaslug website basically is built exactly like this. It's just using text links, and that site ranks for a number of keywords. So I really don't think that it's that big of a deal as long as it's structured with, you know, the proper semantics like your heading tags and that kind of stuff. I don't think it's that big of a deal. The main consideration I think I would make is regarding accessibility. That to me is probably just as important. And yeah, Dividus makes a good point here. So we've set this div, our header container, as you can see here, we set it to the tag of header, and that's essentially all I really worry about. For the most part, I think it's perfectly fine. So back over here to our left div, what we're going to do is close this out, and we have this heading right here. So Small Farms Big Ideas is H1, font size of 4 rem, font weight of 600. So let's add in a heading element here. We're going to add a class of PS heading H1, and then our text color is going to be white, font weight of 600. The font size was, oh, let's see, typography was 4 rem, I believe. Is that what it was? 4 rem, yeah, it seems huge, but sure enough, it is. And then the margin bottom was 20 pixels, which, oh gosh, I see what's happening now. I'm trying to select the text with that open, and it opens the window like 30,000 times. So pop that in there. Small Farms Big Ideas. There we go. Andre says, not sure if you're aware of it. You can set the separator's min height to 0 to make it look correct even in the builder. Oh, interesting. Okay. So min height is 0, right? Isn't that what you said? What about if I said 0 height? Huh. Min height, or is it max height? Oh, I don't know. Not sure. Ryzen says, I just want a solid sticky header instead of disappearing and reappearing .sticky header. Yeah, I think you can do it that way with just some CSS. Francisco, yep, agreed. Hoverify is really, really cool. I've said it a bunch of times already, but there is a link in the description below if you guys want to see it. So now we have this header. To me, I don't know about you guys, but that just feels super big. Let's see. Let's go back here. It says font size 4 rem. Is it the line height? The line height is 1. I bet that's what it is. So we're going to go line height 1. Yeah, that's definitely what it is. Okay. Cool. Elijah says, you're fighting the default 80 pixel min height for divs in the builder. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that to me isn't really an issue because, like, you know, if we go save real quick and take a look on the front end, it doesn't actually have that height. So it's just something that I personally have gotten used to, and honestly it's not really that big of a deal to me because it makes it easier to select, because like if it was, you know, 2 pixels high, it'd be kind of difficult to select that without going into the structure panel. So I kind of appreciate that it's there. All right, so next up, Small Farms Big Ideas, wrong page here. So that's good on the left hand side. So now we have this P block over here, this paragraph block, which is just white. Notice Sarah, well actually not quite white, it's a little bit off white. So that is good that we notice that. So now what I'm going to do is pop in a text element here. We're going to change the tag to P Text color, we're going to go to that off-white color, and let's just add this as off-white text, something like that. And then, oh gosh, I need to get rid of that tab. It's confusing me. So we can move this around. So we have line height, looks like the default, noto serif, margin bottom 1, and that looks good. So margin bottom is 1 EM, and actually we probably should change some of this stuff to a class here. So let's go ahead and do that. Ryzen says there should be a toggle for it, the default 80 pixels. Yeah, I guess that might be something worth considering. Andre, yes it is the real Elijah. It's the big man himself. Pretty exciting to have him, especially because I'm sure he's got all kinds of stuff going on, being busy with the release candidate 1. So, all right, so we're gonna go PS. We'll go text light is our class here. And then I'm just gonna copy this. Perhaps I should use some more styled, some more stacked classes, but for now, I'm not really too worried about it. Change our tag back to P. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and just copy this stuff. I need to pause this. I'm gonna copy this text here so we kind of get our layout. And then we have a button here that we're probably gonna end up using quite a bit. So we need to go ahead and set this up. This one's kind of cool. So it keeps that green border on hover and it loses the background color. So kind of a neat transition effect there. So let's go ahead and pop in. You can use a button element, but I typically like to use, well, actually you're gonna have to use a link wrapper because in this case it has an icon there. So on this link wrapper, we're gonna go ahead and stick a class here. So PS button, and then let's say like, you know, what's the word? Transition, not transition. Oh, inverse is the word I'm looking for. So PS button inverse. So our background color by default is gonna be green. The typography color is going to be white, I believe. Is it full white? Hopefully you guys don't hear those sirens. That's the downfall of living where I live, is there's like a highway right down the street and there's ambulances and fire trucks and stuff that are driving around all the time. Border radius of 3. The color is white directly, so that's good. We're gonna go border radius of 3. What else we got here? So Poppins, font size is 15, letter spacing is 0.5. So 15, letter spacing 0.5. And let's add in a text element here. This one, I think said learn more, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully I'm not wrong here. Yep. And then the padding, is that coming on the text element or the actual button itself? Let's see here. So padding, padding, yeah, so it's on the button itself. So it's 12 top and bottom, 24 left and right. So go back here. We need to get back to our link wrapper directly. So 12, 12, 24, 24, like that. Perfect. Let's see. Got a couple of things going on here in chat. So Benny says, still can't add icons to buttons. That's right. Yeah, exactly why I don't use the button container typically. You can make your own button with the div. Yeah, it just saves a simple step to convert it to a link, use a link wrapper instead of converting it. All right, let's see what's up next here. So Liam says, Elijah, it would be fab if the Oxygen code editor would have the autocomplete function when adding in classes on a custom style sheet. Now that would be legit. Also, if the code block, the code editors had like, you know, the standard kind of like fill in the code for you as you start to type something like margin or whatever. All right. Next up on our text here, let's find out how much spacing there is to the right of that. So margin 0, no. Maybe the button itself has a width and it's just set to push that away from each other. So let's go ahead and just do that. So let's set the button to 164 pixels. I wish the numbers were rounded. So width is 164. That's actually not going to work. That's too small. We're going to add in an icon here. This icon we're going to shrink significantly to like 25, and I think it's going to be chevron right that we want. Something like that. It's actually an arrow, a solid arrow. So is it called arrow? Let's see, there's a bunch of arrows here, but there's not the exact same one. Maybe in linear icons. Arrow, chevron, nope. Oh well, we're just going to use an arrow that's close enough. I'm not terribly concerned about that. And then we're going to change our link wrapper here to horizontal, middle align. Icon's still too big. Let's go 15. And then Let's just take our text here. On the ID, I'm going to go 15 pixels of margin on the right. That'll work perfectly fine. Let's see. Christopher says, hi, I'm migrating a site to Kinsta and they have prohibited the all-in-one migration plugin. Is there an alternative to Migrate Oxygen with another plugin that does the same? I think Cloudways has one that's not specific to Cloudways. I forget what it's called. It's like a rebranded version of Buddy Migrate or something like that. There's also another one called WP Clone I've used in the past, which worked mostly reliably, but hopefully somebody else. There you go. Ryzen says use WP Vivid. There's a good suggestion for you. So our button is pretty much perfect, except now we need to do the hover state. So if we go back over here and look what happens. So the icon and the typography don't change, the background just changes. So we need to add the border radius. So we're gonna go back to our link wrapper here. Border, we're gonna set the color here to a width of 1 solid, and then our border radius we already did. So now on hover, we're gonna switch to background and we're just gonna set this to white and then make it fully transparent. And that should essentially be what we're after. It looks like the border is a little bit thicker. So if we look at this, that's, I guess, exactly what we're after, except maybe the border is not thicker. Maybe it's just 1. Box shadow, border radius. Do. Yep, looks like we're fine. We just need to add that transition. So what did they use here? So the transition is 0.3 ease. So I'm just going to add a class here. We already used a transition earlier, so this is something I'm trying to get into the habit of, which I think I mentioned in a different video. So I'm just going to add a class called PS transition. And on this, I'm just going to go to effects, transition, 0.3, ease, in, out. I think the other one we use linear. So actually, let's just use linear because that was on the other button up there. So this will just keep it really consistent. So now we have that same effect on our button here. I think, was the font different? Yeah, it's Poppins. So we just need to change this text element to Poppins instead of Noto Serif. And then was the font weight thicker? It looks like it is. It's probably like 600 because that's what we've been using. So perfect. There is our button. Awesome. Alrighty, so what else do we have as far as alignment goes here? So is this stuff, that looks like it's top aligned, and this one looks like it's bottom aligned, which is interesting. So if we change this div, I guess the heights aren't quite where they need to be. So what is the height of these divs here? So 293, I'm just gonna round that up to 300. I wish the sizes were a bit more consistent. So we'll go 300. That doesn't do anything. So 300 doesn't do all, oh wait, that's the wrong div. So 300 doesn't actually do anything. Why not? Interesting. I don't really know. Trying to figure out what they did here to achieve that layout. Oh, there's padding 64 and 80. So on this div on the right side, we'll go 64, and then is it 80? That seems weird. So we'll set this to top. Oh, wait. Why is that pushing to the left on top? I guess we can just go to this left div here and go margin bottom auto. And then can we set this one here to bottom align? Well, no, because we stuck some padding there. So what if I just take that out? 80, let's switch this back to the page title container, and I'm going to stick that 80 pixels of padding down there. That won't work either. What about if I stick 80 pixels of padding right here? No, of course not, because I have a height set. There we go. All right, got it. So that's not quite exactly the same thing, but it's good enough for me. What if I take this div and go margin top auto? There we go. There we go. There's a million ways to achieve the same thing. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. It is. I was reading that wrong. This is top, right, bottom, left. Yeah, I was thinking all the other ones have been listed just, top and then right, basically. So, or, top, bottom, left, right. Kind of confusing, but I think we've finally gotten what we're after here. So this looks relatively consistent. Now, what I'm going to do here is add in another div, which is going to contain this bottom, section here. Need to pause this because again, that kind of like pop-up window, showing up all the time is a little bit annoying. And so we're going to minimize our links container. We're going to clean up kind of our structure panel. Let's go add in another div here. We don't want it inside that, so we're going to go down. Oh, let's see. What did I do? Let's see. Oh, I need to set this to vertical. And then, oh wait, no. Nope, I'm making a mistake here. So I don't want that to be vertical. I don't want the div right here. I want it outside of that. Pull this down a bit. Watching me fumble through the structure panel. There we go. I took my separator div out. Geez, I'm having a hard time over here, y'all. There we go. All right. We'll work on some of this alignment and stuff in just a little bit. So I'm going to delete the minimum height off of, actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to change this to 100 and just make it a bit bigger so we have some breathing space here. So we're going to go PS, what was the class here? So div PW to get our width set up properly. And then it looks like we have a really faint border here. So let's try to figure out what border that is. You guys are, so Antonio says he would like to know the name of the extension. This is Hoverify. So there's a link in the description if you want to check that out. There's a lot of other really cool stuff, and I'm releasing a video on this tomorrow. So you can definitely check that out now, but there's stuff coming tomorrow. All right, so what was I doing here? So border, the margin top on that div is interesting at 16%. Where's our border? I want that, it's the same thing, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. All right. So before I switch back over, what was our padding here? So it's 25 top and bottom, 0 left and right. So now we're going to go to this div instead of the class, 25, and then we have some social icons. So in this case, I'm just going to use the built-in social icons. Let's add some space between them. 30. Let's just change this to, I think, let's see, icon color, we'll just go white. And then our icon size, we're going to shrink way, way, way down. I think there's 5 or 4 social icons here. So let's just add in another one. We'll just go LinkedIn, YouTube, make it look kind of like a real website with a bunch of social icons. So that is perfectly fine. And then the other thing is their address. So to get this layout, we're just going to use a link wrapper because I think I would, on a real website, either link that to Google or I would link that to the contact page, something like that. So I'm going to use a link wrapper here. We're going to click in this div. I'm going to type in link wrapper. Inside of this link wrapper, I'm going to add in an icon. The color is our global green. Let's just search for like map, I think it is, map pin, yep. And then icon size will be 25, perhaps even smaller, which we can change in just a little bit. 15 pixels of margin on the right, and then add in a text element. This is just an address. Let's see if I can copy it. So we're going to go pop that in here, and then we don't need the space in front of that. Our link wrapper, what is our hover styles here? So we have that off-white into the full white. So is that the one we used earlier, E2, EB, E2? Let's check our global color real quick because I don't actually remember. Yeah, that is. So we already set that as a global color, thankfully. So that makes it nice and easy. Link wrapper typography, we're going to go to color off-white. And then on our hover state, we're going to go to full white. Make it nice and easy. Next up, we can go to our layout here and just set that to horizontal. And oh, it changed on the hover. Once again, I did that on the wrong state. Didn't mean to do that. So we're going to go back to original and set that to horizontal. Perfect. Okay. So the transition, let's go ahead and add that class that we just created earlier. So PS-transition is what we called it. So now we're going to have a faint hover color adjustment. And then just for the sake of example, let's link this to our contact page. Now, I'm going to go back to our header container here. We set this to space around, but we do have some odd spacing here. Let's see what we can do to remedy that. So we set that one to be absolute 0 top. What about if we set our footer container here to be, let's see, layout, absolute bottom 0 pixels like that. That actually looks reasonably good, but our heading, or excuse me, our whole header section here is not 100 VH. It's something like, 75 or 80. I don't actually know exactly how tall it is. Let's see. It says it's 800 pixels tall, so perhaps let's go a height of 800. That works. Perfect. So our header has taken us a little bit of time, but there is some setup stuff we had to do. Now, there is more to this header, so let's pause, hoverify, and let's switch over here to our farm. Now, if we look at this, it looks relatively similar, except this heading changes. Gosh, I need to close this out. So the heading changes to the page title, which is pretty cool. We still have the description, but obviously we lose that whole footer div with the social icons, and we also lose the button, and we also lose the little subheading. So we can just do this pretty easily with conditions. So what I'm going to do here is basically duplicate this heading. I'm going to insert dynamic data here, and we're going to go page title. We're going to do a bunch of the same things with conditions here. So we're going to go to set condition, and then we're going to go to dynamic data, or actually no, not dynamic data. I'm going to go to post title does not equal home, I believe is our page title there. And then this one, we're going to go to set condition. Let's see, page title is equal to home. And so now we still have some more condition stuff to do, which I'll show you in a second. But if we go take a look, actually, let's see, we're not on the home page. Need to go adjust our permalinks real quick. So let's go do that. Settings, permalinks, post name, save. And then our reading, we need to set our home page to home. That's done, perfect. We're gonna go to pages and home now. So you saw in the back end of Oxygen here, we have 2 headings. And then now on the front end, on the home page, we just get that first heading. Then if we switch over to our farm, then of course we're left with only that, which is pretty awesome. Let's see, I didn't link those links, so I need to fix that here. So this one is home. And then why on that other page did, let's see, I need to switch to home on our preview real quick. So why did that div with our social icons disappear? Oh, it's down here. That's why. What did I do wrong there? Why is it popping up down off the page? Because that's height 800 pixels, and this is layout absolute bottom. Do I need to change this div to relative? Is that what I have to do? Let's see. If I save that now, yeah, there we go. Okay, so that was the fix. I had to set our header container, like this main div for the entire site. I had to set that to relative so that then a bunch of divs open here. So then our footer div, that absolute 0, is relative to the container it's in. So now what I want to do, sorry, I've been meaning to show you this. So of course the headline here on any other page except home is just going to have the page title, but we need to get rid of this. We need to get rid of the button and this entire div. So essentially we're just going to do the exact same thing we did over here. So what we're going to do is actually just copy conditions, and this is really neat with Hydrogen Pack because of the fact that you can just copy the conditions. You don't actually have to go redo them again. So I'm going to copy the condition, and let's see, how do I paste conditions? Do I go set? Paste? Did that work? Oh yeah, sure enough. All I had to do was just paste it. So then what I'm going to do is just paste this again. And then on this button here, I don't want it on the class. I want it on this ID. So I'm just going to paste that. And now let's save, go take a look at Contact Us. Oh no! What did I do? Why is it not working? Oh no! I did the wrong condition. So let's step back a couple of steps here. How many did I do? Was it 3? Let's see. Yeah, okay, so I did the wrong condition. So page title does not equal home. page title equals home. So I just did the inverse here. Wrong thing, but just a mistake. I don't know about you guys, but I fumble sometimes when I'm copying those conditions. All right, so then we're just gonna paste this in. I copied that proper condition, so we'll paste that. Same thing here, we need to paste. And then let's see, so page title is equal to home. We're gonna keep this one as not home. I think we're good now. I just confused myself. So homepage looks good. Now if we switch over to our farm, this should be pretty much what we want, except I think in the real site, the alignment is a little bit different. Yeah, it's equal on those inner pages. So what do we need to do here? Where did I add that spacing on the left side? It was on this div, so that's not gonna work. Let's change this from 80 pixels on the div to 80 pixels on this heading. So now it's gonna look a little bit wonky in the back end, but if we go back over here, no, what do we need to do? Middle align this div? Let's use hoverify real quick so we can see. That one's not, oh, I need to set the height probably on the div to 100% width. Or, I mean, excuse me, 100% height, probably. I'm not sure that's actually gonna work though, because we set this other one to bottom. If you guys have suggestions, I definitely welcome them in this case. Not that I don't typically. What if, we should be a little bit closer. Yep. Okay, we're good. Cool. So that kind of works. I don't think that's exactly the right height here, but that will do. Now the other thing is that in the real site, the header shrinks quite a bit on the inner pages. So let's think about how we can do this. Now we set this main kind of header container here to a height of 800 pixels. But of course that's not gonna work because on those inner pages we need it to be much smaller. So let's think here. I think there was a percentage margin on the top of this div, the footer like social thing here. So let's go percentage. I think it was like 16. That doesn't work. What if we set our page title container to a minimum height of, what is it? Go back over here to home, inspect. So this is, it says it's 300 pixels high, but I feel like it's a heck of a lot more than that. Trying to think here. Oh, there's another div. I need to use this function here. So this little grid line feature shows you all of the divs and containers here. So perhaps we need to set another div that wraps the container and this footer area. And how tall is that going to be? Oh, I lost hoverify. Go back here. So that one is 600 pixels high. All right, that's what we're going to do. So our page title container and our footer div here, we're going to wrap with another one. So I believe you'll just use the oxygen one here. So wrap with div, stick that in. Oh, there we go. And then we're going to set this one to, let's say minimum height, I think, 600 pixels. Still not quite as tall as we want. What if we set some padding up above that? How much would we need? Again, I wish there was a way for us to figure out like a measurement tool. Like how far is that? So I don't know. Let's just go ahead and put some margin here. Like, can we go viewport height on margin? Yeah, there we go. We're onto something here. So let's save our farm. No, I'm messing it up. Let's see. Hopefully you guys follow what I'm trying to do here. So I set this minimum height to 600. Oh wait, actually I don't think I want minimum height. Huh. It's a little tricky. Little tricky, not gonna lie. So the 20 VH is good because that pushes our content away. What can I do here? Did I stick some margin underneath that? Is that what I did here? No. Let's see. Trying to think, Jonathan. Minimum height 600. And then what if we take our footer area here? And let's go margin, top. VH is not going to work. Let's just use pixels. So like 200, nope, that's not going to work because we set it to absolute bottom. I guess let's change that. So we're going to take off the absolute here. We're going to go 200 maybe? Nope, that's too much. 150. 125? Okay, all right. I think we're onto something. So if we save this, our farm. So it's definitely closer. Got a couple good suggestions here in chat. Code block with condition to overwrite header container height when it's on other than home. That's not a bad idea, yep. Another suggestion is, by the way, the height of the header is lower on the inner pages. Now we have some spacing issues here. Andre asks, what are you trying to achieve here? So basically on the example site, when you're on the home page, it looks like this, and on the inner pages, it shrinks quite a bit. So I'm just trying to think about the best way to actually shrink this container's height. I'm getting pretty close. Really now all I need to do is remove this spacing, I think, and we'll be good. But I stuck the spacing on the top part of that div, which is not going to work. So maybe the best thing to do here would be, I do like the code block idea. I'm trying to do this without reinventing the wheel to some degree, which obviously is easier said than done. So just for the sake of example, I'm going to remove this. Wait, I set the margin to auto. What if we take that off? And this was what, 64, I believe. I'm going to take that off and see, are we closer now or did I make it worse? I am kind of going backwards a little bit here, but I'm trying to figure this out. So home. So the home is good. Now we need some margin underneath that on the inner pages. So I'm gonna be a little hacky here, and we're gonna stick another div inside of here. We're just gonna use basically like an empty div for spacing, which I don't know if that's a good idea, but I'm gonna do it. So we're gonna go height of 125, width of 100%, and then we're gonna set this to pop up if the post title does not equal home. Maybe this is gonna work. See, there's a million ways to do this stuff in Oxygen. That's what I love about it. A million ways to do the same thing. Now, is this spacing correct? I don't know, but it works. It works. I hope you guys aren't screaming at me about that solution, but I'm pretty proud of myself. So it's funny because you look at this stuff, like these headers, and you're like, man, that looks cool. It shouldn't be too hard to achieve. And then here we are, an hour and 13 minutes into the stream, and we just now completed the header. Nonetheless, I'm really happy with this. So let's go ahead and kind of move on a little bit. I want to keep things rolling. So what we're going to do now, we'll stick in our inner content element, and we're going to go design the footer here. So this will be good. This will be a lot quicker, I think. Dividus says code block would be easiest at this point. Otherwise, you need to plan where you apply your paddings, margins, and height to get where you want. You're totally right there. Yeah, I don't know. It works. I'm happy with that. So back in our template here, we have our header container done. So now what I'm going to do is stick in an inner content element. Size is going to be a minimum height of, I always do like 85 VH so that our inner content isn't floating in the middle of the page, or excuse me, our footer is not floating if we don't have a lot of content. Once again, we're going to go with a div here, and we're going to name this, we'll just call this one footer. And then again, we're going to change the tag here. This time we're going to use footer instead of header. And we got a couple things going on here. So one thing that I noticed on our example site is that every page has this subscribe to get special offer section. So we can stick that in our footer container here. So that way we don't have to add it to every page. Just to show you, if we go to our farm, there's that same thing. So we're just going to use this here. So let's use Hoverify to figure out how tall this section is. It's 372 pixels. Perhaps that's like a, you know, standard unit that they're using, but it just seems weird. So I'm going to call it 375. So inside this div, let's use 100% width. We're going to set this to 375. We're going to use our background of that trough full of veggies, which is pretty nice. I'm definitely down with that. Top 50% to set it to the middle. And then we have a background color that's pretty dark here. Oh, wrong tab. Background color that's pretty dark here. What are they using? It says a background color of that, but that's obviously not it because it's transparent to some degree. So I'm just going to take that same color here and then background, actually it's not background. Once again, I just said that. Background color overlay, is it 65 roughly? 65%, something like that. That works for me. And then I need to move this tab over here because I keep clicking to try to get to that tab. We have our separator, so we can just stick in a div here. We're going to go div, and we're just going to use our class here that we used earlier for PS, what was it, sep, I think I called it. Sep short, yep. So we're going to set this to center, middle align like that. Next up, oh my lord, look at me switching to the other tab. So we have an H2 here that's white with a font size of 2.5 rem. So we're going to add in a header. Let's go PS heading H2. Perhaps I should have set up a base class of PS heading and then changed the sizing on H2, but I'm not going to do that. Text color 2.5. Was it EM or rem? I can't remember. 2.5 rem. And then a font weight of 600. And font weight of 600. Tag of H2. And then the line height here was 1. Now, that says subscribe to get special offer. Subscribe to get special offers. I'm going to add an S there. And then the margin underneath has been typically around 15 for most of this stuff. So let's see real quick. It is I don't actually see a margin or a padding. So we're going to use our own. 15 is good for me. So let's stick in a text element here. We're going to go to P, set this to our off white, not our full white. And then let's just copy this text. That works. Now, of course, as you can see, this is all on one long line, but in our example, it's not. So if we look over here, we can figure out how wide this is, and it is 800 pixels wide. So what you can do is just on your text block, go to a max width of 800, and it will just make the line breaks for you, which is pretty handy. So that looks pretty good. Now we're ready to go ahead and add our next div here. So this is going to be our footer area, and this is using what as the background color? I can't tell if it's this. I guess it's the darker color here. So we'll use this. We're going to add in another div, and we don't want that div inside of this other one. We're going to stick it down below. Background color here, and set this to a width of 100. Now, is this stuff contained to our standard 1200 pixels wide? Let's take a look and see if I can figure out how to select the whole container. I wish there was a way to like toggle up, you know, like in the DOM. I guess it is 1200. It's pretty consistent with everything else, and all the other ones have been 1200. So inside of this div, I'm going to add in another one, and we're going to use this PS div PW class that we've been using. Now inside of that, we have basically a 4 wide column, or excuse me, 3 actually. So should we use the columns element, or should we use the default divs that we're always after, that I always use? That's a good question. That is the question, isn't it? Let's see here. I'm gonna build it manually. All right, so I'm gonna expand this here. We have this div. I'm gonna rename this a little bit. So we're gonna call this, to keep things consistent here, we're gonna call this CTA. That's pretty easy. We're gonna call this footer content, and then we'll call this our 3 columns. Oh yeah, grid. What am I thinking? You're right. I'm glad I waited to start doing that. Thank you for the suggestion. Very, very good idea. So, yeah, let's go divs. So we're gonna go div, and then let's see. So this is gonna be a little bit of an experiment here. Let's call this like PS footer divs. We're gonna add a class, so any styling we do will apply to all of them. Let's duplicate this 3 times. Grid. We're gonna go column count of 3. That makes it so easy, so easy. I love it. There's also something that I noticed. See you later. Thanks for joining. In the 3.7 RC1, they added the horizontal item alignment here, which is beautiful. Really, really cool. All right, now what we're gonna do is inside of this stuff, we have our logo and a couple of, icon blocks basically. So inside of this div, we're gonna go to image. We're gonna toss in our our logo. And how tall was this? So I'm using Alt-I to toggle on hoverify, thanks to that suggestion from earlier. So that one's 160 by 40. It actually even tells you, I don't know if you guys noticed that, it tells you the size of that image, which is pretty amazing. So it's telling us our SVG there is 6.6 KBs. That's pretty sweet. I love it. All right, so the width here is 160, and then what's our margin underneath that? Or how are they using the spacing here? So, I guess one thing you could do would be set a specific height on the overall div, and then set it to space out, so it's 225. I'm gonna try that just to see. So on our divs here, set it to min height of 225, something like that. Taylor, thanks, dude. I have had a good bit of practice, so it's deceiving for sure. Stoked to see you here. All right, so margin, let's go 15, roughly. And then we're gonna add in a link wrapper here. This link wrapper, let's call this PS footer, I don't know, footer content. PS footer, what do they call it over here? Let's steal their class. Element icon list. All right, there we go. PS footer element list. There we go. Perfect. That works. Now set this to 100% width. I'm going to set it to horizontal. We're going to go to typography and change it to what is that? This. Kind of nice. I like that. So we're going to go to typography, set it to that new color. Let's just call this olive. I don't know what color that actually is, but it looks cool. Icon, we're going to go 25. And then what icon are they using? So it's pretty self-explanatory actually. So they have an address, a phone number, and the mail. So we'll change this one to, or actually it's map, not address. So map, and then I should probably be setting this as a class, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back here to this div and take this same class, stick it on this icon, except I'm going to add icon on the end here. And then let's copy our styles from the ID to the class, and then delete the styles from the ID of the element directly. Perfect. So it's not inheriting our color, but we can take a look at that in just a moment. What I want to do is stick that. Is it a different green? Oh yeah, good call, jump here. Yep. So it's our global green for the icons. I'm glad I set a class there, so green there. And then we have our text. And then I'm just going to go back over here and copy this address because it's a believable address, not something made up. And then we also have a different font size here. So how small is this? Those are, let's see. I don't see the font size. So maybe it's being inherited from somewhere else, but it's so small. It looks like it's, I don't know, maybe 14 pixels. That works. I'm sticking with that. Alrighty, so 14 pixels. Let's go left align, and we'll stick that in middle. On our link wrapper here, I'm gonna add, it's probably not 15 pixels of margin quite, but I'm gonna do that. We're gonna duplicate this twice. Change this one to a phone, and then once again, I'm just gonna steal the phone number here, even though that's not a US phone number, not a big deal. info@example.com. Oh, there we go. And then we're going to change this icon to, I think it's ENV for envelope. Yeah. So envelope, there we go. And then what else do we have? So we have a link here for get a direction. That doesn't quite make sense, so we'll swap that out here in just a moment. Now I'm going to minimize this stuff so you guys can kind of see what I'm going to do here. I'm going to click in my div, and then I'm going to add a text link. We're going to change this to get directions. And then let's take a look at the styling here because it does look a little bit different. So it looks like it's Poppins white with a bolder font here. So it's Poppin 0.5 letter spacing, white, and then the border is our green. Okay, cool. That's going to be pretty straightforward. So we'll call this like PS, link alt or something like that. So text color is white. The font, not target. Our font family is Poppins. Font weight is 600. The letter spacing was 0.5 pixels. And then we had a few pixels of padding. So let's go like 8 down below. And then we're going to set a border bottom of our primary green, probably roughly 2 pixels like that. And yeah, that's looking pretty good. I am happy with that. So now we just need to add some spacing in between the top and bottom of this section. So I'm not sure exactly what it is, but let's just go like 75 pixels top and bottom on, let's see, our 3-column container here. So we're going to go back to our div. Let's go 75 top and bottom. So that gives us some nice breathing room. I'm pretty happy with that. Hopefully you guys are as well. Now back over here, similar setup here. So we have a heading, our separator, some text, and some social icons. Now we have our H3. So very similar. We're going to switch over here. And actually, did I add any spacing in these divs? I did not. I guess that's not a big deal. So what we're going to do, toss in a heading, and I think what I'm going to do this time, even though it's not quite consistent, is I'm going to go PS heading H2 because it's pretty much exactly what I want, except I'm going to add another class here to H3. Is this going to work? No, it's not going to work. Because you have 2 classes with 2 different tags. Yeah, I should have set up a base class of PS-heading and then added the tag, as an additional class. So what I'll do, actually, let me put that H3 back on, because what I'm going to do is copy the styles from this one to that one, delete H2, and then on H3 here, I'm going to switch it. It's already H3. And then it looks like the font size is smaller. It is 1.5 rem instead of 2.5. We're going to set that to left align in just a moment, but that made it nice and easy for us to get that heading set up and looks pretty similar to what we're after. So does that already have margin underneath it? Yes, it does. So now we can just toss in another div, and we're going to go ps-separator. And then next up we have just a basic text element, so I'm going to steal the text out of this. Yeah, I can do that in just a minute. I'm going to duplicate the middle one over to the right here in just a sec for sure. So text, we're going to change this to a tag of p, and I don't want it inside of that div here. So take that text out of this div, stick the separator one back on top, and then what color is that? It's that off greenish color or olive color. And then we're going to set this one to vertical. Actually, no. We're going to set this div here to vertical and left align. And actually, we need to change the heading as well. So it says get in touch. I'm going to do that. Get in touch. Perfect. And then last, what we're going to do, or lastly in this div here, let's add some margin underneath that. And then our social icons one more time. This time they are a slightly different setup here. So let's inspect this and figure out what colors we got going on. So our background color is that right there. So what we're going to do is go down here to background color. I think we need to change it to circle. And then is our icon color the full green? Yeah, that's what it is. Perfect. And then we need to go to icon size. Let's make this much smaller, like 35 pixels, and then bump this up a bit, space between. And then like before, I'm going to add in a few more socials just to make it look a little bit believable. So perfect. Now we have that div here looking nice and good. So what I'm going to do is use hydrogen copy and paste. I'm going to Control C, Control V on my keyboard. And I'm going to stick this outside of there. Delete this div. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel so much on this last part here. So we just have a couple of links. Really, the only thing we need to change this to is the heading to say quick links. Quick links. Hoverify sure makes it easier to copy the website. Got mine this week. Still need to take it for a spin. Yeah, I really only started using this in the last couple of days, and I'm happy with it so far. It's pretty cool. So over here, we're going to delete the social icons, and then I think what I'm going to do to set up that other layout here is, well, actually, this is something I haven't considered before. Gosh, I need to get rid of this. Sorry, guys. I think what I'm going to do is add one more div inside of here and use the grid feature to have it set up the layout for me. So let's delete this text. I'm going to try this div. We're going to set the layout to grid, and we're going to go column count of 2. Do we need to set the width here of this div to 100%? Is that going to fix that over? Yeah, there we go. Fixes that overlap. So now, did I add a class to these text elements? No, I did not. So what I'm thinking is, let's see. These are pretty small, but it's essentially this text right here. So I think I'm just going to steal this text element. Yeah, I'm gonna take this text element and just apply that class here. So footer element link class. So we're going to go text link, and then is this going to work? Yeah, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. So home, and then what we're going to do is, how many do we have? So it's 10 basically. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we don't need that much margin underneath them. So let's go, I probably should have done this before I duplicated it 10 times. But if we go element list, I'm going to add another class here of no margin. And then let's set the margin on the bottom to 5. Nope, didn't work. Padding to 5. Nope, didn't work. What did I do wrong? Is it something to do with grid? Oh, it's the gap of, no. Let's see. Is it something to do with grid here? Is that why there's so much horizontal spacing? Match height of tallest child, gap 5? Oh, yeah. There we go. What if I set it to 0? Yeah, that's good enough. I think that will work. So next up, let's just go ahead and set the names here. So our farm, our produce, testimonials, and contact. Our farm, our produce, testimonial, and contact. This is pretty cool. I haven't actually used the grid feature to do something like this, but I would have built this with divs before. Yeah, I'm typing grid as I'm typing that out. The grid, yep, perfect. Thank you. I haven't used grid to make a layout like this before. Like I would have created 2 different divs here and set them to be, you know, like 50% of its container width, but this is just a heck of a lot easier. So next up we have bundles, consulting, subscription, and learn more. Bundles, consulting, subscription, and then learn more. What was the other one? I'm forgetting one. Community. Oh, it was learn, not learn more. And then community. Try row gap. Yep, is that what you were talking about? Yeah, row gap. I set it to 0 and that fixed it. So that's perfect. Alrighty, so let's minimize all this stuff here. We got a bunch of stuff going on in our structure panel. So in our 3-column setup here, do we have some margin beneath that? Let's go 25 pixels, and we're gonna add in another div. I don't want it inside of my 3-column layout though, so I need to minimize all this stuff, and I need to take this div out. This one is going to be our sub footer, so I'm gonna rename this sub footer, like that. We're gonna set this one's width to 100%. Inside of that, I'm going to add in one more div so that we can use our restricted to page width class, so ps div pw. And now let's go see what's actually in that. So there's a copyright tag and a powered by, but what we can do real quick is go to our sub footer. We're going to set a border on the top of, what color is that? Let's see, probably just that off gray. I'm going to use this. So color top 1 solid on the top. And then all I'm going to do here is, oh, I set the grid layout on that class there. Whoopsie. Hopefully I didn't screw up our header. Yeah, it did. Uh-oh. I did not mean to do that. We're going to have to come fix our header. That was a mistake. Whoopsie. That causes a few headaches, I believe, here. So that is not ideal, to say the least. We need to switch this back to this, go to grid, column count is 3. Oh wait, no, I'm in the wrong element here. So 3-column, grid, column count is 3. There we go, crisis mostly averted for the moment. But now I just wanted to come down here. We're gonna go to middle align. Actually, sorry, we're gonna go to horizontal, then middle align, and then we're going to go space between. We're going to add 2 text links. This one is actually not even a link, so I'm going to pop in a regular text element here, stick that right there, move it over here to the left side in our structure panel, and then our text link probably would be, you know, I'm going to change this to powered by permaslug. And then what is our color on this stuff here? So it's that olive green. So we'll just change it on the ID of these elements directly. So olive, and then on our text link here, we're going to go to olive as well. Now our spacing, what is our spacing? This div is a height of 77 pixels. So I'm just going to set that sub footer to a height of 80. We're going to go 80 like that. And then let's set our sub footer to middle, and there we go. So we are definitely coming along. Let's go take a look on the front end real quick and see how hard we messed up our header layout. Looks like it's actually not that bad. But yeah, so now we have our call to action section here. We have a functional footer, and of course we have this sub footer. I think this border is a little bit lighter than it is in their example, but it's good enough for me. So I am really happy with how this is coming along. Just for the sake of example, let's switch over to our home page, and it still looks good. So our crisis for a second there of messing up the grid is actually not that big of a problem. So we are at, let's see, a little over an hour and a half. I'm going to take a quick, like less than 5-minute break, and I will be right back. So stick around in chat, and I will be back in just a second. Thank you guys so much for being here this whole time. We're going to keep going. Don't worry. Don't leave. Alrighty, and we're back. Hopefully that was less than 5 minutes. I think it was. I told you, and I want to be consistent. I want to be truthful here. But first of all, before we get rolling too soon, I just wanted to say I do anticipate completing the whole homepage today. And then if you guys are interested, depending on where we're at time-wise, we can always set up, more of this and complete these other pages as well. I definitely am going to knock out the homepage before we end today, just depending on time and people's interest levels. May get, a little bit tedious later on. But I want to say thank you all for spending all this time here, and we're going to keep going. Also, to those of you guys that have donated via the super chat function, just want to again say thank you so much. It is a super just overwhelming that you guys are even willing to do that. I just genuinely appreciate it so much. So really appreciate those super chats. Absolutely amazing stuff. Now, what we're going to do is go ahead and take a look at our demo site. We're going to turn off this little Alt-I. And basically, we're going to switch over to the home page. Let's take a look here. So we have an Our Produce section. Pretty straightforward layout. Got a couple cool things here. So we're going to use the border radius on these images to make them circles. Kind of a cool layout setup going on here. We got that same kind of subheading. We have our class here, or our separator. This is going to be pretty interesting. So if we take a look at Hoverify real quick, what we can see is that there's an image on top of another image, and then there's this background back there, which is kind of neat. So that one will be cool. We'll definitely be able to set that up. Got some icons going on, and got a video testimonial section. We might create a custom post type here because there is testimonials on another page as well. So it's probably going to be best for us to set up a custom post type. So I think we'll do that. And then that brings us down to the end of the homepage. So let's go ahead and get rolling on this. I'm going to bring us back here. And then on our target site, we can go ahead and exit our template. We'll probably need to revisit this later for mobile device, optimization, but that's typically something I do at the very end. I don't know about you guys. So now what we're going to do is go to our homepage here. First of all, because this was an Elementor site, is there anything in our content editor? There's not. So we'll go ahead and just edit this with Oxygen directly. Hopefully you guys are having a good Friday so far. All is well for me. It's still early in the day. Gonna have a good day. I have a bunch of friends watching, which is amazing. My brothers, and it's just crazy. So thank you guys for joining again. Really appreciate it. Alrighty, so now we're gonna go ahead and get started adding this content here. So let's go to add, and then on our Elementor preview here, what is this background color? I don't think we've used this yet. Now in Hoverify, you also do have the ability to look at the entire color palette of the site if you want. So you could go ahead and copy every single one of these colors. There's just a massive amount of them. And then the other thing you do have is also the color eyedropper. So if you pick a color, we can look at it right here. It keeps the RGB and the hex color there for you. So then we can just copy that. And let's go back over here to our section. So background color, let's just set this as, like, I'm gonna call this cream. Dude, Eric, what's up? So stoked to have you here. Really appreciate it. The support is just like overwhelming. So I appreciate you guys hanging out all day. All right, so next up, what we probably should do now that we're using sections is set our site width, because I'm imagining this stuff is all going to be the page width here of 1200. Actually, these are 1140. That's interesting. So it's slightly less wide than all of the content up there. I wonder why that would be. Or actually maybe the header. The header is wider. Okay, so the header is 1200 and everything else is 1140. Now, just to make this easy, I'm gonna go to settings, global styles. Let's go to width, and our page width is actually 1120, so it's really, really close. Go to 1140. So there we go, perfect. All right, so we have an H2 here, which is actually dark. We have a text element. We have our inverted button from earlier, which actually doesn't work quite right, but we'll fix that. And then we have our images with some basic headlines. So let's go ahead and we're gonna center this stuff, pop in a headline. Let's use our H2 class, and then what I'm gonna do is basically just take this same thing, and we're gonna make a stacked class here, so H2, and we're just gonna call this -dark. So add a new class here, and then what color are they actually using? Is that full black? I'm not exactly sure. No, not quite. We're just gonna call this like dark. So that'll be our global color here. Oh, no worries, we're glad to have you here. And yes, so for those of you guys that are curious, the Hoverify extension I'm using is in the description below. That is an affiliate link, so it doesn't increase your price, but I do get a little kickback. So if you guys do buy it, really, really appreciate that. All right, so our produce, and then we should have our margin carried over automatically. So let's take a look at our text element here. That is, it looks like a slightly different form of our color from before, but we should just be able to toss in our text. I'm going to change the tag here to P. Oh, I didn't copy. I didn't copy the actual text itself, so I need to paste that in here. Our max width, let's just go ahead and set to 800 pixels because that's probably what it is. That's what it was earlier. Martin, no worries on just now joining. Happy to have you. Thanks for coming. So what is this color? Is it slightly different here? It looks like it is, just for the sake of example. Yeah, it's ever so slightly off, but I don't think we already have that color added, do we? No, let's just go ahead and set this to our like body text color, because I imagine we're going to be using that quite a bit. So I'll set that as our global color there. And then we have our inverted button. So remember earlier we built that, I believe it's in the header. Oh no, it's right here. So we're basically just going to duplicate this button that we built earlier. And there's a slight difference. So view all produce. Now, what did we actually call that? I'm going to have to add those classes again. I think it was PS button inverse. Yeah, there it is. All right, so text. Let's see, our produce, if I can type. Was it all capitalized? No, it was like capital letters on the beginning. So view our produce like that. And then probably need to add some margin here, 15, and then we're gonna go icon. And we're going to use the arrow right like before, because there's not an exact replica of the icon that was used in that button. So icon size of 25. Let's see, there's not, I forget what arrow I used. I don't see it. Maybe if I type right. Oh, there it is. Yep, cool. And then I think it was 15 pixels. So yeah, perfect. There we go. So next up, underneath our button, I'm going to use grid again so we can take advantage of the grid. Sylvia, thank you so much for the super chat. It's just like dumbfounding the support you guys shared, especially today. In general, it's overwhelming, but even today. So I really, really appreciate that. All right, so what we're going to do here is utilize grid. So typically the way that I would have done this in the past, I mean, you could easily use the built-in columns element to get a layout like this, but the columns has a little weird, like spacing issues and stuff. So we're going to use grid. What I'm going to do is stick a div inside of this. I'm going to set this div's width to 100%. We're going to go to grid and set this to a column count of 3. Inside of this div, let's stick in another one. We're going to pop in an image. This image is our vegetables, so those tomatoes right here. And this image you can see is 400 by 400 pixels, so it's a perfect square, which is going to allow us to go to border radius, and we can set this to % and go 100%. And that makes the image a circle, which is cool. So you can do this anytime you want, but unless the image is a perfect square, then it's not going to pop up like that. Another one, Peter. Geez, thank you guys. Oh my gosh, I love it. Thank you so much. Really, really amazing. Sylvia, thank you. That's so kind of you. You didn't have to do that, but I certainly appreciate it. That's really, really generous. So those images on the actual live site here are much smaller. So they're 200 by 200, so we can easily shrink that. We can just go here to 200, and then we're going to set this div to center. The community is absolutely amazing. You're right. You're absolutely right. So we've been using around about 15 pixels of margin on almost everything here. I would imagine that's pretty consistent. Let's take a look and see on this image if there's something else set up. No, That's going to be close enough. Maybe we need to bump it up ever so slightly. Now our headings here are H3s, so we're going to go ahead and pop that in. We're going to go heading, and then let's change this to H3. Once again, I'm going to change this to a stat class, so PS heading H3, we're going to go dark. And then our text color, we used dark from earlier. Now this one, I don't remember what it said. Vegetables, that's a word I always get wrong. Vegetable. There we go, vegetables. That guy in Japan says, I was just searching at 2 a.m. for a way to move to Oxygen from Elementor, and I bought Hoverify all the way from Japan. Amazing. Super stoked to have you here. Japan is definitely a place I want to get to as soon as possible, especially if there's any Formula One fans out there to go to Suzuka. That's my dream. Visit Japan and go see the F1 race there. So we'll just clone this a couple of times. Now, I would typically set up classes on this stuff if I'm going to use these sorts of layouts all over, all over the site. But in this particular case, I'm only going to use this here, and maybe I would come back and set up classes if I was going to use the same layout again. So we'll just kind of look at that on a case-by-case basis. Now, what does our spacing look like beneath? Oh gosh, clicked that so many times apparently. Our spacing look like beneath this button. So I would guess maybe 50 pixels. So let's go on this div here to margin of 50, and that looks pretty good. Perfect. Sylvia says, what you give to the community in terms of content is immense, and I'm so thankful. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Hello from Germany. Glad to have you here. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. Anja? Correct me if I'm wrong, but really stoked to have you here. Welcome. Alrighty, so next up, we can go ahead and move down to the other section here. So you guys see me turning on and off Hoverify. I'm just doing that with Alt-I, so pretty easy there. I think we can go ahead and do our grid layout here again. So this one's going to be interesting because we're going to have like 3 or 4 divs to achieve this layout on the right side, but we're going to use grid to get that column set up for us. So once again, we're going to stick in a new section. Let's add in some divs here, and we'll go 100%. We're going to set this to grid. Column count, maybe we need to adjust to 3, but for now I'm going to stick to 2. And then we're going to add in 1 div on the left-hand side here. We're going to use our subheading from earlier, our separator, and then let's take a look and see what this is. That's an H2. Perfect. So we're going to go to the heading, and then we already set up the subheading from earlier. I forget what I called that class. Let's take a look. What is this right here? It's actually set up as an H1, so I need to fix that, but that's not what I meant to do. PS heading H5 is the class. So we're going to go back over here. PS hyphen heading H5. We need to change that probably on that tag there. So there we go. Let's see. The races. Yeah, totally. I love Formula One. My whole family can attest to that. If any of them are in chat, they could definitely back me up on that. But yes, Suzuka Circuit is a dream of mine. Absolutely. Now, this says our story, and then we have our separator div. So our story, and then div, we're going to go to sep short is our thing. We need to add some margin here on that other heading. Can't quite get to it. So let me go here, and then let's go 15 pixels of margin beneath it. Yeah, so basically, I talked about this at the beginning of the stream, but I know that's been a long time ago. So essentially what happens is as soon as you activate Elementor on your site, your header and footer and all that kind of stuff is going to go away because, of course, that's handled by your theme. And when you activate Oxygen, it completely disables your theme. So you more or less have to build it, back from the ground up. But the benefits that you get long term are just so far superior, in my opinion, that it's a worthwhile investment of time. And for most people, including myself, it's a transition you make. You're not going to go rebuild every single site immediately from the ground up, unless you want to. But in terms of it being like a realistic transition, you will do it slowly over time. Alrighty, so after our separator here, we have what exactly? So we have another heading, which was H2. So let's toss in our heading. We're going to go H2, and then we're going to add in our other class of H2 dark. That heading says supplying the best organic products since 1985. We're going to go supplying the best organic products. And then we're going to use our text here. So we'll just add in a simple text element, P. And then what are we looking at here for font color? So that looks like kind of that off color. Yeah, so we already have that as a global color. I'm just going to utilize that there. And then last but not least, we have our inverse button once again. So to make this nice and easy, actually this one's a little bit different. So our button up here, oh, I made a mistake here. So the button's not quite the same. We need to basically make the inverse of this button. So let's do this. What I'm gonna do is supply, oh yeah, you're right. I made a mistake there spelling wise. So PS button inverse, and I'm gonna go PS inverse alt. And on this alt, the background color is transparent. So the background color, we're gonna go to white and then set it to 0% opacity. Typography color is going to be green. And then on hover, the background color will be, let's see, green, and then the text should go white. So white, and then the background should be green. So it's basically just going to invert on hover. And then we need to add our transition class to this. So we're going to go ps-transition. So now we have our transition effect, as you can see, which is perfect. So to make this easy, so we don't have to rebuild this button, I'm just going to duplicate it and pull it down here. And now we have our button. So what we're going to do is go take a look. The button says read more. So we're just going to change this to read more. And I imagine you'd probably take this button to like your about page or something. So let's go to like our farm. That sounds about right. So that's perfect. Alrighty. And then the only other adjustment here is there might be some extra line height. So there is a line height of 1 on this heading. So I'm going to go over here on our ID and change the line height to 1. That made no difference. So we're good. Perfect. Diviatus says all my Cloudways servers went down. That doesn't sound good. Let me check a couple of my sites. Let's see. No, my websites are still up and they're on Cloudways, and obviously, you know, the site we're building right now is on Cloudways. Maybe it's regional. Most of my stuff is in the East Coast of the United States, though. It could be certain server pods or something. All right, so now we're ready to build our div on the right-hand side with that cool custom layout. So we're gonna stick a div right here. Let's see, the question popped up, do you ever work off of a design system? To be perfectly honest with you, not really, because most of the sites that I do aren't that complicated, but it is certainly worth considering. It's something that I think if you set up once and then import it as a design set, so it's sort of built for you, then it would work really well. Or alternatively, you know, if you bought something like Oxy Ninja Core, that would work perfectly fine. Okay, so let's take a look over here. So we have our main div that kind of wraps all of this. And in fact, let's take a look at the grid component here. So I'm gonna pause this. So we have a main div on the right-hand side. And then I think what we're gonna do is set this to align right. We're gonna have one div that's 100% height. That's gonna have that background image. Then we're gonna have another one down at the bottom. And then maybe just a regular image element inside of that. And the other div here is gonna have that background with the little dots there. So this might be a little bit tricky to set up, but we're gonna take a look. Cool, we have some people chiming in that their other servers are online. Dallas is up and Frankfurt is up. Interesting. All right, so let's give this a shot. Now, in this div, like I said, I'm gonna add in another one, and let's set this one's width to like 60%, and then we're gonna set the height here to 100%. But we also probably need to set this one on the right-hand side to 100%, but we're using grid. So can we go match height of tallest child? Why doesn't that work? Or is it stretch? There we go, it's stretch. Okay, cool. So on the right-hand side here, we're gonna set this div to right. On this div, we're gonna go to background image, and then what was that? It's like a long greenhouse. So where is that photo? Choo-choo. Oh, there it is right there. Alrighty, so that's perfect. That looks really, really nice. Now what we're gonna do is in this right-hand column div, we're gonna add in another one, let's go to, let's see, how are we going to do this? Maybe let's go layout, absolute, left 0, bottom 0, and we need to change our parent div here to relative. So then our div sticks in here. So what I just did was in our main wrapper div, or excuse me, not main, but on our right-hand side here, I went to layout, set that to relative, and then on this div, I went to layout, set that to absolute, and then went 0 left and 0 bottom so that it sticks down here in the lower corner. Now, how tall is this stuff over here? So if we click on the little play icon, it's 240, 311 basically. So let's set this to a height of 310. That's actually way taller than it appears over there. So let's drop that a bit. Let's go like 250. And then how wide is it? It looks like it's about 60% maybe, or maybe more like 50. So I'm just going to use percentage width here. We're going to go 50%. A little bit more than that. Maybe it was actually 60. My initial guess was right. 70. There we go. That works. All right. So then we have a background of that dotted green. I actually don't even know if that's on here. Hopefully it is. Let's see if we can find that. There it is right there. Perfect. So we have that dotted green. And then inside of this, I'm assuming this is probably best done with just an image element. So that image is 370 by 240. So let's pop in an image. We're going to go 370 by 240. I think it was 247. So we're just going to be really consistent here with what that image was. And it's that green grass being cut. Farmer background. Now we definitely need to go ahead and set the Z index on this to higher than that other stuff. So we'll just set this to like a 15 Z index. And then I think we want to set this to be a taller height. So maybe like 350. 350 is a bit tall. 325. It's stretching that background image, which I don't think is supposed to happen. It says it's 311. I mean, I guess I'll just do it. And that looks reasonably okay. Sylvia says, this is totally off topic, but I thought I'd ask anyway. Do you have a tutorial on PermaSlug about oxygen and ACF? Have you ever used Toolset? So never used Toolset. I played with it a tiny little bit and just didn't find it as intuitive as ACF, so I didn't actually spend any time with it. There's tons of videos on ACF in my oxygen course, and there's also a standalone oxygen course that kind of gives you a walkthrough of it. Tons and tons of stuff you can do with ACF. It's just incredibly powerful. We're not really going to touch on that in this live stream so much, but maybe another one. We can definitely do that. David says, what application or extension are you using to view the properties of the element? So I'm using Hoverify. There's a link in the description. But Hoverify is really awesome. A lot of really cool stuff. I'm getting these grid lines. I get all the CSS properties, all the colors. You can download all the image assets, all kinds of stuff. Andre says use padding bottom instead of an explicit height. Good suggestion. I like that. So padding bottom 311. Well, our background goes away there. Let's see. Taylor, yep, good call, Taylor. I would use max width. Let's see. So I want this image to be a bit smaller. Maybe if we add, let's take off that margin, 125, 50, 25. Let's just go like 50. It is stretching that image a little bit, but I think if we go to background and then like cover, yeah, contain, something like that. Remove the height of what? Of the div? Or the image? Curious what the suggestion is here to fix this. Remove the height. That looks like, I mean, close. The dots are a little bit like spaced out, but I think you could adjust that with the background image position on this div here. So you could go like, I don't know, maybe 50, 25, something like that. Oh, okay, cool. I already removed the height, so yeah, we're good to go. Perhaps I need to add just a little bit more margin beneath that. So instead of 50, let's go like 75 or 65. That is close enough for me. I am happy with that. So don't want to spend a massive amount of time on this because ultimately it's not like, super important. But we do need to add an image border radius. So you can see there's some rounded edges on these images here. So if I press Alt-I, activate Hoverify, what is our image radius, or border radius is 12. And then there is some box shadow. So let's copy this box shadow. We're gonna set a class here. So we'll just call this like PS image styles. We'll do that. Border radius was, oh, not on the div. Whoops. Don't mean to stick that on the div. We want to do that on the images here. So PS img styles, and then our border radius was 16. Is that right? I already forgot. It's 12. I'm glad I checked. So then we're going to go to effects, box shadow, paste that in, and then our box shadow is 16, 24, 80, 0. 16, 24, 80, 0. Interesting. That does give it a nice effect there. I haven't used something that intense before, but I like it. So PS img styles, there we go. That looks nice. I'm happy with that. Real quick, I want to refresh on the front end and just take a look at what we got so far. So there's probably some spacing right here we need to address. So let's do that real quick. It's just ever so slightly off. Yep. So what did I do here? I did, oh, actually no margin. So let's go 15, just make it consistent there. And then what else do we got? So I'm going to turn off Hoverify. It's all looking pretty good to me. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm pretty happy. Wait, that's our target site. Or I mean, our origin site. This is our target site. This is all looking pretty good. It looks like there's some more spacing on these sections. Yeah, something like that. All right, so now let's go ahead and add this stuff. So we have a hover effect here, as you can see. There's like a box shadow that appears on hover, so kind of unique there. I like it. Let's go down here, and underneath this div, I'm going to add in another one. Once again, let's actually, first of all, add some margin here. So we're going to go 50. I'm going to set this div to 100% width. We're going to use grid because this just makes it so much easier than it was before to go column count of 3. I'm going to go div here, and let's add in a class. Let's call this, well, actually, maybe this one might not be easier because of the way that we have, well, no, it takes up most of the space here. These divs butt right up to each other, as you can see. I was thinking if you needed some extra spacing in between them, it might be better to build your divs manually, but this will be perfectly fine. So what we're going to call this class is like PS div hovers or something like that. And let's take a look at our padding here. So what do we have? So the padding is 28 top and bottom, 32 left and right. So 28 top and bottom, 30 what? 32. All right. And then the color, not too worried about that. We'll look at that in a minute. On our hover state, there is our box shadow. So we're going to go to state of hover, go to effects, box shadow, and then this one's pretty intense as well. So it's 0, 40, 120, negative 24, 40, 120, negative what? Negative 24 pixels. Yes, this is Oxygen 3.7. This is the 3.7 RC1 that just came out today, so it was perfect timing for the stream. Andrew asks, the Hoverify looks interesting. I see that it's on sale for only 16. Is it really good or what? I mean, I'm happy with it so far. I have a full video coming on it tomorrow, so if you want to wait until tomorrow morning, East Coast, United States time, to check it out in more detail, you certainly can, but hopefully this kind of gives you a demonstration of it. So now what we need to do is stick in an icon on the left side. So we probably need to add in another div here. We're going to do an icon, a heading, and then some text. So we're going to pop in another div, set this one to 100%, not 111%, 100. We're going to go to horizontal, And then actually on our target site, are these images or are they actual icons? They are, wow, that font awesome has got an interesting name. All right, so we do need to make our own icon, it looks like. Unless there's an image element, which I don't think there is. Yeah, no, there's not. So we're gonna go ahead and delete this. Be kind of interesting here to make our own div. So we're gonna go ps, what did I call this other class here? ps div hovers icon. Let's just call it that. The background color is going to be our global green, is it? No. It's this one, like a lighter green, ever so slightly. Oh no, maybe it's just more opaque. Yeah, we're going 50% opacity on that. Yeah, good point, Dividus. It's 2 installs with 1 license. You're right. Okay, so now we have the icon itself. So inside of this, let's add in an icon element. And then we're going to go, let's see, what was the name here? This is getting kind of complicated. Hover icons, let's see, hover icons, styles. This is getting kind of silly. So I don't even know if we're going to be able to pull in this. Yeah, no. That must be a pro icon. Let's just call this like a, I wonder if there's like a vial. Jar. We got to find an icon that's roughly similar. What is the actual heading here? It says chemical free. Maybe there's chemical free. Yeah, let's just use that icon. Good enough for me. And then what is our color here? So that is our global green. Perfect. We're going to set that icon size to 25. And then what's our padding around that icon, if any? So it's padding 20 all the way around. Perfect. So 20 pixels all the way around. So then on this div here, we're going to set the border radius once again to 100%. So we get kind of our custom icon like that. And let me rename some of this here. So this is going to be our, let's see, what is the content here actually talking about? We'll just call this like features container. I want you guys to be able to see kind of the organization of these divs. So this is feature container, feature item, and then we're going to call this one the icon wrapper. So now what we're going to do is inside of this feature item, we need another div, and we're going to name this one our feature text. We're actually going to have a heading and some text inside here, so we're going to go width 100%. And then what kind of headings do we have here? So this is a span element, and maybe let's just see what an H3 looks like in here. So we're going to go H3 and then H3 dark. Looks kind of big, but it's perfectly fine. H3 dark needs a tag of H3, and then what happens to your actual ID? So it does change for us. Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure that the tag was actually being set there properly. Now, it says chemical free, so I'm just going to copy that, paste it in there, and then what do we have for our text? Need to close out some of this stuff. There's this text right there, so we'll just pop in a text element, change our tag to P, pop that in. There we go. Now on my feature item here, I'm going to set this to middle align. There's a bunch of extra margin right there, probably because I changed the tag to P. So I'm going to change that actually back to div. That'll be fine. And then what I'm going to do here is go back to my icon wrapper and add, let's say, not 15, maybe 5 pixels of margin. Seems like it needs to be a bit more than that. Maybe if I shrink some of the spacing over here. So let's drop this to like 24 top and bottom, and then we'll go 28 left and right. Give us a little bit more breathing room so we can take our icon wrapper and add 15 pixels of margin without it dropping to a second line. Cool. So looking pretty good. Now what we need to do is make it have that box shadow on hover. So did we already do that? Yeah, we kind of did, but we need to add that transition. So on our feature container here, we're going to add the class of transition. And now it's kind of hard to see it actually. I might make that box shadow. Oh no, not transition. On the PS div hover. Where did I do that? Am I just making that up, or is there a box shadow on that? Yeah, there totally is. Where did I do it? Was it on the ID? No. Oh, it's on the hover state. Whoopsie. I'm gonna bump this up from 8 to like 18, make it a bit more pronounced like that. I think that looks perfectly fine. And now we can duplicate this features container a couple of times. So the other ones we have here are fresh and healthy and 100% organic. So I'm going to close out of Hoverify so I can copy and paste this stuff here. Fresh and healthy, and then just some default filler text. John, thank you for sticking around so much. He says he's got to go. Are you going to upload to your channel at some point so I can see how you finish it? Yes. So pretty much as soon as the stream ends, it will be available as a replay on the channel. So however far we make it today, like I said, at least the home page, you'll be able to watch all of this later on. So thanks for sticking around. Next up says 100% organic. And then the text here, copy and paste that in. And then let's look for some other icons here. So what would a healthy icon be? There we go. Heart, that looks good. And then organic, I have no idea what to search for organic. I doubt there's one called organic. Let's see. I'm just gonna search organic, and we're gonna go with this leaf. Perfect. I think that might be an actual icon for something, but I'm fine with that. It looks good. Okay, so there's definitely more breathing room between this element here and there. I think I only did 50 pixels of margin on this div. So I think I'm gonna bump this up to like 75. And then on this container, I'm gonna make it 75 on the bottom there. Probably a bit too much now, actually. No, we're good, because we still need to set up this stuff here. So next up, I'm gonna minimize all this stuff. Let's rename these real quick so you can see. Let's call this one like intro heading. And then we're gonna call this one our features. And then I'm gonna add in another div here. The first thing I'm gonna do is set it to 100%. You guessed it. And then what do we have? So we have our subheading, a separator, and then our main heading here, which I guess is an H2. It sure is. Easy enough. So heading element, and we had it as H5 for our subheading like this. That one says our farm. And then we had another div inside of here, which we just had the class of separator on. Next up, we had a heading. And since we already set up our, not inside of this, we don't want it inside of our separator. We want it outside of it. On this heading here, it's an H2. And then we had the stacked class of H2 dark from earlier. So this makes it nice and easy. We don't have to recreate the styles every time. It says the home for our farm, natural and sustainable. So that's good. And let's just go ahead and center this stuff. So on our H5 subheading here, I think I'm going to add 15 pixels of margin roughly. Yeah, Taylor, you're right. I do keep forgetting about hydrogen. I have it installed and I keep forgetting. It's just such habit because I haven't used it nearly as long as I have been using oxygen. So a habit I will have to break. Now we have our button from up here. So let's just go ahead and duplicate that. Because we already have it with all of the classes, there's no reason we can't just take it right out of there. And then the button said learn more. Oh no, not capital. Learn more like that. And then underneath that, there is a video element. So we have the goofy video that Oxygen tosses in there. Let's go, maybe, is 50 too much? Wait, where am I? Not this div, the link wrapper here. I want 50 pixels of margin there. I think that's actually too much. I wish there was an easy way to see how much spacing was underneath it. So that says margin bottom of 20, but there's obviously more there. That one's margin top of 32. So it's actually 52. So 50 is good enough. I'm leaving it as 50. Now, that doesn't look like a real video. What happens if you click it? No, it just takes you back to the home page. So I wonder if they just use an image. Let's see. That's a background overlay for the video. So you should use utility classes for adding consistent padding and margin. You're totally right, Taylor. Definitely setting a bad example by not doing that. Yeah, once you have the elements kind of already there and you have your classes set up, it goes so much faster. You're totally right. To be consistent here, I don't have a good video for us to put here, so I'm going to delete it, and I'm just going to actually use let's go with a div, so that way we can add an icon on top. So we're going to go div, background image is that nice picture of the greenhouse, which is this one here. It says it's 800 pixels tall, but I don't know how big this actually is. Alt-I to activate hoverify, it's 555 pixels tall. So we'll go 555, and then what we're going to do is set this to center vertically and horizontally. And then I'm going to go with an icon. We're going to set this to like a play button. What is it on here? So it's got the black background with the white icon. So we're going to change the icon to white. We're going to go to solid, and then our background is that. So icon size needs to be way smaller. Let's go like 25. And then let's bump up the icon spacing to, no, not 50. 35? No, not 350. 35. Looks like our icon is a bit bigger, maybe 35, and then our space around like 25. So yeah, and then you could realistically link this icon straight to your YouTube video, and that is good enough for me. Do we have the box shadow and the border radius class? We do. So I'm going to stick that on this div right here. We're going to go img style. So we have our box shadow, and the border radius is the button font Poppins. You are totally right. Good call. So this right here is Poppins on the demo site, but on ours it is not that. So we need to go to link wrapper. Let's change this to our PS button inverse. I think it's alt typography. And then font family is Poppins. Perfect. There we go. And then is that border radius higher? I think it is. Let's go here. So border radius, that says it's only 3 pixels. It feels like it's more than that. Because here, it looks like it's more than that than it does on the Oxygen site, but I don't know. Good question. I'm good with that for now. We're going to keep moving on. So next up, we have a text block on the left-hand side and some bullet points over here. So this will be good. I see people ask, how do I set up custom bullets quite often? I mean, you can obviously just use the Oxygen rich text element and add it that way. Or of course you can, build it out manually. So that's the route we're going to go. So I'm going to copy this real quick here. And then once again, let me minimize this stuff so you guys can kind of see where we're at. This div, we're going to call this video section. And then we're going to stick in another div, which is going to drop down to the bottom. On this video section, let's go 50 pixels of margin. I know Taylor's screaming at me because I'm not using a class for that, which I totally should be. 100%. And then once again, we're going to do grid column count of 2. It just makes it so easy. Div on the left with some text inside. Paste that right in. And then inside of this container here, add in another div. Before we get too far, I'm going to rename this. We're just going to call this like bullet points. And then over here, I think we can go grid again, actually. So grid column count 2. We're going to go to gap of 5 in both spots there. We'll switch it to left align. And then we're going to make one div that has an icon and these bullet points here. So let's do this. We're going to go div, create a class here. We're going to call this like PS home bullets, something like that. We're going to stick in an icon. Why not use 3 columns since you have grid? Yeah, I guess you could do that. We're going to go 25 and then check mark. Let's see, our check looks like that one, I believe. Yep, close enough. And then we're going to go to 15, I think. And I didn't add a class here, so I'm going to go PS home bullets icons. And then we're going to copy this ID to the class and then delete it from the ID. Andre says the button border radius is 8, by the way. Checked it in the regular dev tools. Thank you. I wonder if there's a mistake there somewhere. We're going to go back to our inverse class and set the border radius to 8 instead of 3. And you're right, it does look much, much better now that it's 8. I'm happy with that. So inside of this div, we have our icon, and then to the right of that, we're just going to stick some text in here. So on this div, I think our font weight is going to be higher, probably like 600. Let's take a look real quick and see. So it's a darker color, and the font weight is set to inherit. So maybe it's just a darker color. Maybe it's not actually 600. Let's see, we already have that color there. So what happens if we take it off of 600? Yeah, it's definitely 600. Okay, got it. So we'll set this to horizontal. And then these links are pretty small, or excuse me, these text elements are pretty small. So now I'm going to add maybe just like 5 pixels of margin. And then how many do we have? There's 8 total. So I'm just going to duplicate this like that. Perfect. Grid makes it so easy. So easy. I love it. I am going to copy this a few times just to make it look, you know, reasonably real. I think it makes a big difference. It makes it more believable and just like feel more real when you actually have it like this. Oops, not insert, delete. And then we'll move right along. So I think next up we have our testimonial section. And if you guys are interested, we can set up a custom post type for that, which I think will be pretty cool. It'll be a good demonstration. All right, one more and then we'll move on. There we go. Perfect. All right. So let's go ahead and save real quick and take a look on the front end of our converted site here. So everything is looking pretty nice. I'm happy with how it's coming along. Yeah, Andre, you're right, actually. So realistically, on the margin right here that I added to the home bullets class, we could just delete that. And then on this grid, is it gap here? Yeah, so you could just set it to gap there. That's a good idea. He's suggesting, he says, that way you don't have to add margin bottom for the last row. Very, very true, because otherwise you'd have to go to that class and you'd have to set it to 0, or excuse me, you'd have to go to the ID of the last one in the row and set the margin bottom to 0, but this saves you the headache of having to do that. Okay. So now we're done with that entire section, so we're ready to add in a new section. And in this site over here, we have a pretty cool layout. Now, how are we going to design this? This is easy. We've already done this a bunch of times. Thank you, Elijah. Really appreciate it. It's super awesome. So obviously this is the real site, and then our target site is looking fairly similar. I have made some tweaks here and there, but it's starting to look really, really good. Now, let's see, what can we do here? This alternating layout, we could easily make it like static, but I was thinking about doing this with a repeater so that the testimonials update and we create a custom post type for them. Totally open to suggestions here. Trying to think. So Sylvia asks, is there going to be a loading and performance test at the end to actually see the difference of the same website built with Oxygen instead of Elementor? That's a good question. I'm not sure it's actually going to make a huge difference in this case, to be honest, because there's not a whole lot of fancy stuff going on, but it's certainly worth exploring. I mean, maybe it's a substantial difference. I really don't know. We can take a look. What I want to do right now is figure this layout out, and then we will move on, and that'll be the last thing we do, and then we can wrap up the stream. So let's see. All right, trying to think. Not exactly sure how to achieve this one so far. Real quick, I'm gonna step away for like 2 minutes and then we'll resume. So I'll be right back with you guys. All right, and we're back. I was trying to think of some different ways that we can set this up. One thought that I had that would not quite be the same here is doing like a div with grid so that the first one here has just like the regular content in it, and then the second one has the repeater in it. But I don't know that that's going to work. I mean, I guess the repeater would be stuck in this div here. So, well, let's just go ahead and start. Now, this section here has a background color that we were using earlier, that like kind of cream. Where did it go? Did I not save it as a global color? I guess I did not. Oh, I did. Where is it? Is it that one? Yeah. Weird. I just couldn't see it, I guess. There we go. So it's that cream color. All right, and then really, I'm just gonna duplicate this stuff and steal it. So duplicate all of this, boom, boom. Oh wait, I can just use hydrogen copy and paste. That's gonna be so much easier than trying to drag it down into the proper spot. So we're going to go heading, paste. We're going to go div, paste, and then heading, paste, and then button, copy, oop, paste. There we go. Beautiful. Hydrogen pack did its trick there. Let's see. Andre says you could use a grid with grid template rows masonry, not yet supported in all browsers. You know, I was actually just playing with that, and it wouldn't work in a few different browsers, so I stopped using it. But that's a good suggestion. Dividus, yeah, you caught me. I did use copy and paste. Thank you for the reminder. And Taylor says, could you use a repeater that uses column wrap / masonry that overflows into the second column? Oh, man. I don't know. Maybe what we'll do, just so we can have something here, is I think what I'll do is just set this up to center right here, and then we'll just add in the repeater and we'll style these blocks to look like that. To me, I think that's going to be a better solution, and perhaps we can revisit this and I can try to recreate this layout off stream so it looks a bit more cohesive and that way we're not fumbling around. So let's go ahead and trying to think here. I guess we'll do the repeater styling first, and then we can go back and make the custom post type in a little bit. So inside this div, let's go to grid layout. I think we're going to enable grid. Column count is going to be 2. Inside of our repeater div here, let's add in another one. With this, we're going to go to, we have our image here, and then it looks like we have a quote icon aligned there, which we can do. That's not going to be a problem. And then we have our image for the person's thumbnail. There's a div right there, so that's actually super helpful to be able to figure out how they align that. I like that a lot. So let's go ahead and just build that one here. So this div is going to be 100%. We're going to center this, and then we're going to have an image element. We're going to browse for that person's photo, avatar female 2, like that. And then, interestingly, that says the JPEG, so we don't have the transparency. Is there somewhere else these people's photos are? That one has the rounded background. So I'm going to use this guy's photo instead of the other one from the example. And then the photo is 80 by 80. So we're going to shrink this down quite a bit. So we're going to go 80. Thank you so much for hanging out. Really appreciate you. Have a great weekend. And also, for those of you guys that have donated through the super chat, thank you so much. I wanted to tell you that again before you leave. Just genuinely appreciate it so much. All right, so next up, we're going to make an icon. Let's see, we're going to go quote. And then our color is green. Our, let's see, icon size is way smaller. And then let's go horizontal align. We're going to switch the icon over here to the left side. And then can we use negative margin to just pull it on top? So it's all the way over their image, which honestly is a little bit clunky to me. Negative 15 probably is okay. And then let's go layout z index of 15, something like that. Maybe negative 20. I don't know. It shows up over their face in some cases, which I think is kind of goofy. So that will be perfectly fine. I like that. Nice and easy. And then was there a background color on that? There was. So the background was green and the icon was actually white. So we're going to go solid. So the background color is the green and the icon itself was white. And then the icon size, we're going to shrink a ton. So 10, and then let's drop this to 15. Looks perfectly fine. I'm happy with that. So yeah, there we go. That was nice and easy to recreate. Now what we're going to do is with this div, let's go 15 pixels, and we're going to add in another div here. Yeah, I will go with grid, Elijah. What I decided to do was just change the layout a little bit. So I'm going to have that stuff at the top, and then I'm just going to use the repeater to grid this stuff out. I wasn't sure what the best way would be to replicate this with the repeater. As you can see, if I use the grid function here, maybe this would be a better bet. There's like, I'm trying to get these lines for you. There's that, and then there's the second div over there. So I don't know exactly how you would replicate that layout. Maybe we can revisit it though, was my thought. Just not exactly sure how we would get to that target. But I want to focus on this styling for now. So we're going to add in another div underneath this. So this div here is going to be 100% width. The background color is white. Let's go take a look at our border radius and the shadow colors here. So border radius is 12. We're going to use that olive as our border color. So border radius is 12. Border color is our olive, 1 pixel, and we'll go solid. And then, is there a box shadow on this? There is a hover box shadow. Okay, we'll come back to that in just a second, but our padding is, let's just go 6456. 64. It's kind of an odd interval, but we'll stick with that. And then we're going to go text inside of this. Let's close out of this so we can copy some of this text. Then underneath this, we're going to add 15 pixels of margin. We're going to add in a heading element, and let's see what tag that is, if it's a heading at all. It's just a testimonial name, actually, so it's not a heading. Bolder font weight and a black color. So we'll delete the heading. And then we're going to stick in another text element. Font weight of 600, make it black. And then it's just their name. So Anna Cynthia is what we'll use here. We can change that later to be dynamic. So we'll center this stuff. And then what we're going to do here is remove this margin actually. And then can we use negative margin to pull it up on top of the image here? So negative 25. And then we're going to set the z-index here to, let's go like 25. Now, how does it align over here? So if I turn off hoverify, it's halfway up. So we need to do more. It's not quite 15 or 25. It's going to be like maybe 35, 40. There we go. Perfect. So that overlaps nicely. I like that a lot. Yeah, Divitus, I've tried to get him to do a live stream before, and hopefully he'll come on board with me one day and do it. So we have our layout here, which is pretty sweet. So we're going to refresh on this front end. So our border is definitely darker in this layout here. So what I'm going to do is actually just go back to this, and I'm just going to change the opacity down. So bottom, and then let's go 50. Perfect. Yep. And then now what I'm going to do, since we have this layout, is we're going to go create a custom post type, because this is definitely the way that I would want to do this on a real site. That way the client could get in there and add their own stuff. And not only that, but we also have a testimonial page where eventually, you know, this stuff is going to replicate out, which I think is going to be really, really nice and just much more user-friendly for a client. So let's actually go back to WordPress admin. We're going to go over here to add a new plugin, and we're going to go to CPT UI, install this bad boy, and then activate. And we're going to go to add edit post type. The post type slug here we'll just use as testimonial. The plural label is testimonials, and then singular is testimonial. Okay, and then add. Oh, there's already a page called testimonial. Whoopsie. So we'll just do user testimonial as our slug. Testimonials. Testimonial. There we go. All right. Got that added now. couple other things I like to do typically is change has archive to true. We probably won't use an archive on this particular example, but I do like to turn it on. And then the other thing that I like to do is change the icon here so it's not that little pin. I like to go to dash icons and just find one that kind of makes sense for this. So we'll just change it to this. That's perfect. The editor quote, pop that guy in there, save, and there we go. Good question. Pods versus CPT-UI. Never used pods. It could totally be viable. I just prefer CPT-UI. It's perfectly fine. Now, we do need to add ACF as well. So we're going to go get the free version of Advanced Custom Fields. And that is because we're going to add a few custom fields like the user's name. And that's about it, actually. Their name and image, I think, is all we need. Oh, no, not extended. Whoops. That's not what I meant to do. Come on, Jonathan, you're not paying attention. Advanced Custom Fields. There it is. If I was paying attention, I would have seen that, but obviously I did not. So we don't need extended. I'm going to get rid of that. And then custom fields, we're going to go to field group. Yeah, the new Elementor prices are kind of weird. I don't really know what to make of it, to be honest. I've never really used Elementor, and it's not something that, you know, is in my repertoire of plugins and, you know, add-ons that I use, so I can't really comment on it. I'd have to let other people that use it and are heavily invested in the ecosystem give their opinion on that. So we're going to call this field group testimonial fields, if I can spell testimonial. Minimize this. Our post type, we're going to change that is equal to testimonial. And because we're using Elijah, dude, I know it's like I've never done that before until now, but that's super annoying. Like, why is the add-on ahead of the other one? I don't know. Position, we're going to go to high after title, but since we have Gutenberg, it doesn't actually matter. Now, the only fields we really need here are like the person's image. So user image is what we'll change this to, because we can set the post title to their name, and then that's it, because we can put this in the WordPress content editor. We just need a field for their name, and then I guess the other thing you could do is add like another text field. We're going to add something else here so it's a bit more interesting. Let's go like, maybe like, I don't know, phone. Well, no, what would it be on like a typical testimonial other than just their name? Portfolio link? Yeah, I guess we'll do that. We're just going to call this portfolio link. So like if this was an agency website, you could have it like linked to their corresponding portfolio item. So yeah, that's perfect. So if we publish this, we're going to go over here to testimonials. We're going to add a new one. I can get rid of this dash icon. And what we're going to do is just copy the same stuff. So Anna Cynthia is going to be our post title. This is going to be our description. Our user image here, we're just going to pick one of these things out. So, oh yeah, company, John, that's a good one. That's a way better one, actually. Social media link is a good one. Company is really good too. We're going to use this avatar picture like that. And then, actually, I'm going to change this. I like the company better than portfolio link. Go back to the custom fields, and then portfolio link, we're going to change that to company name, company underscore name like that. Update this, and then let's go back to our testimonials here. So Anna Cynthia, oh, another one would be like user, like their level at the company, you know, like their position. So we could go company name, we'll call this like, no, we're going to call this, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on the portal, Cave Johnson, Aperture Laboratories. How am I getting that wrong? Or how am I forgetting that? Aperture Laboratories. I can't spell laboratories either. I need a picture of Cave Johnson. I don't have that handy, unfortunately. All right, so that's good enough. We're going to update this. And then I'm going to add one more. You're looking at me fumble through Gutenberg, trying to get more used to it. Joelle Rain. Actually, we're going to call this one Cave Johnson. Copy this, paste that in as their bio, their user image. This is obviously not Cave Johnson, that's an imposter, but that's good enough. And then their company name, we'll just call this Oxygen Builder. Perfect. So now we're going to publish this. We have more than one post. Let's add one more, so we have 3, so we can kind of see the layout and how it would look. What other one do we have over here? So do we have one that's longer? I guess we could just duplicate this text a couple of times, make it longer, and just see how that behaves. We'll use Ricardo, and then we'll find another image here. Their company name will just be Permaslug. Perfect. Publish. All right, so now let's jump back into Oxygen on our home page here, and we can set up that repeater using the dynamic data. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this so far. If you've picked up anything, definitely let me know in chat. I'd love to hear if any of this stuff is going to be useful for you. So now what we're going to do here is take this image. We're going to go to dynamic data. We're going to go to, actually we could have used the post featured image, I guess, but I used the advanced custom field for user image. We're going to go to original, and oh, I haven't set my query on the repeater. I need to go to repeater, query, custom, post type is user testimonial, apply. Now I'm going to go here to insert data, go to post content, and then we're going to go here again. So insert data is post title, which is in essence the user's name. So there we go. Perfect. Now let's go take a look on the front end. Unfortunately, these images aren't actually transparent in the background, which is kind of a bummer, but that's just something we'll have to live with for the moment. So there's our testimonial section, definitely coming along nicely. Now, one question I have, hopefully if you're still here, Elijah, is with the masonry, I know there's a line of CSS you can add to enable masonry, but there's quite a few browsers that don't support it. So is there a way for us to make this masonry? Like if I had a 4th post, would it apply right here? Or would it push up to the bottom of Cave Johnson? Let's just try it real quick. No reason we can't. So one more, we're going to go testimonial. We're going to use, let's use Margaret. Paste that in here. Copy in their bio. User image, we're going to grab that one. And then their company name will just be example company. All right, publish. And then let's see how that behaves on the front end. Yeah, so I wish that it would like close up this gap here. So is there a way for us to do that? Let's go take a look real quick. I'm not exactly sure. The grid stuff is still obviously very new. So, all right. Coming down. What options do we have here in our grid layout? So auto fit, no. Row behavior, match height of tallest child. You could technically override the CSS grid settings on the container, just make sure your selector is more specific. Okay. So, match height of tallest child. The reason I use the repeater is because it's much easier to build complex layouts like this with the repeater than it is easy posts, because with easy posts you basically have to build the, the HTML and CSS yourself, which is totally viable. If you want to go that route, you can, but the repeater is just easier. So auto fit is not what I want. Center, you can do, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, let's take a look at our target site real quick. So did we complete our home page? Let's take a look at our Elementor example. So here is our home page. I'm going to use the scroll wheel so it's a bit more smooth. We're going downtown. This is looking good. Testimonials, I believe, is our last section. Yep. So now let's go to our target site and we're going to compare here. Oh, I forgot to change the produce, but you get the idea. Vegetables. There's some, small differences here between like spacing and alignment and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it's pretty close. I need to revisit this here and figure out how we can replicate that exact layout from earlier, from the demo site, but it's looking pretty good. Now, we have, of course, our CTA from the footer. We do have all of the other pages to build out, but for the most part, I think these are going to be pretty straightforward. So like if we go to our farm, those are just some standard content sections. That stuff would be pretty easy to build. This might be a little bit tricky if you don't know like negative margin and that kind of stuff. We have a team section, so if you have a big site, that might call for another custom post type. Our produce. So if this stuff looks like things that you want me to build in the future, I am willing to do another session here where we go through and build all of this stuff. But we've made a ton of progress today. So we're just at 3 hours now, which is pretty amazing. And we've averaged probably like 50 concurrent viewers. Absolutely amazing. Those of you guys that have donated, once again, I'm blown away. And thank you so much. I just can't thank you enough. This is really, really fun. I enjoy doing this. I don't know if you guys like these longer live streams or if you like the more edited, regular videos that I typically produce. But if these are more engaging, if you get more out of this, this is something that I can consider doing more regularly, maybe like every other Friday, something like that, or, change up times and stuff. So please let me know in the chat. And I think that's where we're gonna end it today. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. 3 hours now, lots of familiar faces, and many of you have been here from the very start of the stream. So I really, really appreciate it. You guys are amazing. And until next time, I'll see you then. Bye-bye for now.